Chapter 1006. No one knew where the sound of the horn came from. It seemed to be supported by a great divine ability, causing everyone who heard the sound to feel their blood boiling. Then, a ray of silver light broke through the sky. That silver light looked like a ball of flame from afar. It was so dazzling that no one could look at it directly. When it got closer, they could see that it was an old man standing in the middle of the silver flame. The old man wore a golden circlet on his head. His face was tense and stiff. His skin was greenish-black and no one could see any expression on his face. His body was full of death chi. He was a corpse devil that had died countless years ago. This corpse devil's body was emitting a strong early thought fragmentation realm chi. In his hand, he was holding a scroll that was sealed by silver flames. As soon as he stood in the sky, he opened the scroll. Instantly, a terrifying aura force turned into a gale and swept towards everyone. Those cultivators from the tribes who had weak cultivation bases were usually blown away by the gale. Only the true immortal realm old monsters could remain unmoved in this gale. When the gale finally blew past, the cultivators of the tribes could no longer stand still. They knelt on the ground and bowed to the corpse devil. "Welcome, sacred envoy." Their voices pierced through the sky. Tamu and the others naturally bowed to him. Those cultivators who were flying in the sky and watching the grand event from afar also landed on the ground and bowed to him respectfully. Among them was even Duolan, who had a noble status. The hierarchy in the despicable tribe was strict. Because the cultivators of the tribes were the descendants of medicine slaves, their status was the lowest. The tomb guardians of the sacred mountain had a slightly higher status, but they still had to kneel before the sacred envoy. Even if the so-called sacred envoy was just a group of corpse devils with low spiritual intelligence. "Why don't you kneel?" The corpse devil old man's eyes swept across the grassland. Suddenly, there was a person who dared not to kneel before him. Then, he questioned with a hoarse voice. "I'm not a person from the despicable tribe. Naturally, I don't need to kneel to anyone." Ning Fan said indifferently. "That makes sense." The corpse devil old man's tone was still stiff. There was no hint of joy or anger. Listening to his words, he seemed to agree with Ning Fan's explanation. Suddenly, his body flashed and disappeared from the sky without leaving a trace. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. His body also flashed and disappeared without a trace. At the next moment, an explosion suddenly resounded in the vast sky where there was no one. It sounded like a single explosion, but it also sounded like countless explosions that overlapped. Following that, spatial cracks appeared in the sky. Then, two figures flew out from the spatial cracks. They were none other than Ning Fan and the elderly corpse devil. Ning Fan landed on the ground calmly. That corpse devil's dull eyes were filled with shock. What happened? No one, including the cultivators in the Shikong clan, could clearly see what the old man and Ning Fan had done. Even Doran did not know what had happened in that instant. That does make sense. That corpse devil old man kept his astonished expression and maintained his indifferent expression. Only he knew that in that extremely short moment, he had already exchanged tens of punches with Ning Fan. Even with the strength of his corpse devil body, he was actually at a complete disadvantage in the exchange of blows. According to the rules of the Holy Mountain, if one had the strength to rival the Holy Emissary, they could ignore the hierarchy and not kneel before the Holy Emissary. Since Ning Fan had such strength, there was naturally no need for him to kneel before him. However, if he meets a stronger Holy Envoy, he would still need to kneel before him. Could it be that this external cultivator surnamed Ning is able to hold his own against an early thought-shattering cultivator even though his cultivation is suppressed? When the cultivators in the area saw that the Holy Emissary did not hold Ning Fan accountable for not kneeling, all of them had their guesses and were secretly shocked. Then, they remembered that Ning Fan was the only ruthless person in the Towerwood tribe. No matter how strong he was, there was still a limit to how much he could change the situation of this small competition. Thus, they heaved a sigh of relief. After all, he was just one person. That corpse devil old man's expression was still indifferent. He ordered the cultivators who were kneeling to stand up and began to read the scroll in his hand. The battle of seizing the mausoleum will be held once every 1,000 years. I, the Holy Emissary number 41, will be in charge of the competition in the southern border. It will be divided into 2 rounds, the written test and the martial test. The group with the highest total score will be able to enter the middle state and participate in the second round of the mausoleum. Now, I will announce the topic of the written test. I advise everyone not to blink and watch what is going to happen next. Don't miss out a single detail. When the corpse devil old man finished reading, he suddenly raised the scroll in his hand. The scroll flew all the way up and suddenly turned into a silver fire dragon that soared into the sky. When it reached the apex, it suddenly twisted its body and shattered into countless flames, falling on the grassland, burning all the wild grass in the area. However, after a few breaths of time, new and tender wild grass grew strangely on the scorched land. The whole process did not take more than 10 breaths of time, but it contained too many magical principles. The purpose of the written test was to test the magical principles contained in this scene. This is the topic of the first round of the written test of the mausoleum. All of you must have comprehended something. You have 1 day to write down your comprehensions on the scroll and send it back to the middle state. The emperors of the middle state will judge and determine the score. As soon as he finished speaking, the corpse devil old man turned his hand again and took out a piece of silver beast bone. After crushing it into bone powder in his palm, he threw it forward. Immediately, silver bone ashes fell with the wind. As soon as the ashes fell on the ground, they immediately turned into short tables that were supported by skeletons. There were 700 bone tables and 21 rows. There were a total of 35 rows. Not a single one was more, exactly the number of tribes in the southern border. In the past, the written test would randomly give a question to test the cultivator's comprehension. Unfortunately, there are too few wise people in the southern border. Almost none of them could get good results in the written test. Looking at the history of the southern border, there are only a few who could get more than 100 points in the written test. The written test is not important. The difference between the tribes is not too big. The difficult part is the combat test. Younger brother Ning, you don't have to care too much about the results of the written test. With younger brother Ning's cultivation base, it won't be difficult to get more than 1,000 points in the combat test. It will be enough for our Tower Wood tribe to get rid of the shame of being at the bottom. Tagore secretly gave Ning Fan a few reminders and gave him a palm-sized domino token. Then, he turned his head and gave out the bone token to the participating cultivators of the Tower Wood tribe. Ning Fan looked at the bone token in his hand. It was the item that he used to record his results. The front of the bone token was engraved with 2 words Ning Fan. It was his name. The back was used to record his results. Currently, his results were still 0. After all, the small competition of the southern border had not started yet. So the written test is not important. Ning Fan didn't comment on Tagore's words. He followed the participating cultivators and slowly walked to their respective bone tables and sat down cross-legged. On the bone table, there was a bone brush, blood ink and a leather scroll. On the top left of the table, there was a groove with a strange beast face drawn on it. Many of the weak cultivators picked up their brushes as soon as they sat down, dipped them in ink, and scribbled. Then, they rolled up their scrolls and threw them into the beast face grooves on the table, along with their dominoes. Then, the groove of the beast face would close up and light would shine. After a while, the groove would open up again. There would be no leather scrolls inside, only the bone token. The bone token would record the results of the written test. The vast majority of cultivators wouldn't guard against others copying their answers, so Ning Fan was able to easily see some people's answers. I comprehended the fire ability to light the grass and the fire is very hot. This was the answer of some cultivators who had a low IQ. I feel indignant at the act of the holy envoy burning the southern grassland. This is the inheritance left to us by our ancestors. How can we blaspheme it? Fortunately, the grass grew back in the end. This was the answer written by a young cultivator who was full of resentment. I didn't comprehend it. There were also people who handed in blank answers. What made Ning Fan speechless was that even these retarded answers were secretly copied by many people. As for the plagiarism, the old man corpse demon didn't care at all. In just the time it took for an incense stick to burn, more than half of the cultivators had finished their answers. One should know that the time given for the written test was a whole day. Ning Fan looked to his side. The other 19 people of the Towerwood tribe had already handed in their answers and received their results. Out of the 19 people, 18 of them got 0 points. The only one who got a point only got 1 point. Ning Fan remembered that person's answer was burning grass, fire restrains wood. Almost everyone in the four heavens knew about this kind of common knowledge, but in the Towerwood tribe, that person could still get 1 point. They could only blame the people of the Towerwood tribe for being retarded. It was already very rare for them to be able to answer the common knowledge of cultivation. Therefore, apart from Ning Fan, the total score of the Towerwood tribe's written test was only 1 point. Fortunately, judging from the current situation, most of the people from the other tribes who had handed in their answers were also retarded. Their total score was only a few points, which was not much different from the Towerwood tribe. However, this didn't mean that there were no normal cultivators in this place. There were at least 2 or 3 people from the other tribes who were still thinking, as if they had really comprehended something from the questions in the written test. Some of the stronger tribes like the Evil Goat tribe and the Summoning Wind tribe still had 11 or 12 people who were thinking hard with their eyes closed. As time went by, there would be people who were enlightened from time to time. These people weren't like those retarded cultivators. They would strictly isolate their answers to prevent others from seeing them. Of course, with Ning Fan's cultivation base that was far beyond this place and the all-pervasive sense of the rain technique, he could still easily see everyone's answers. There were also other Shikong old monsters who could peek at the Dujin cultivator's examination paper. The old corpse demon never stopped them. Being able to copy it was also considered a skill. After all, this was the cultivation world where the strong were respected, not the mortal imperial examination. One by one, the cultivators with normal minds handed in their answers. Most of the things they comprehended were related to the Dragon Transformation Scroll and the Fire Rain Dragon Transformation Scroll. Most of them only got around 5 to 6 points, which wasn't very high. After all, this written test was obviously not testing on divine abilities, but the comprehension of the Tao. Burning the grass, reviving the grass, wildfire can't burn it, the spring wind blows the grass again. Gradually, Ning Fan stopped caring about the results of others. Instead, he was immersed in his own comprehension of the Tao. He no longer treated the comprehension of the Tao as a competition. Instead, he had really gained something from it. He sat on the grass in front of the bone table. He didn't lift his brush to write for a long time. Instead, he closed his eyes and replayed the scene of the rebirth of the grass in his mind. 2 hours passed. Almost all the cultivators who were below the Shikong rank had handed in their answers. None of them had scored more than 10 points. Of course, there was also an exception. The young clan leader of the Evil Goat tribe, Xian Yu-chun, who had a low IQ, actually fell asleep on the table and did not hand in his answer paper. 4 hours passed. Some of the Shikong cultivators began to hand in their answers one after another. Then, the results of their answers began to appear. Hiss. It's actually 30 points. What exactly did Wizard He Shan of the Black Mountain tribe answer? How did he get such a high score? Someone outside the venue suddenly exclaimed. Wizard He Shan seemed to be dissatisfied with his score. However, he did not dare to question it. This was the score given by the 5 emperors of the Middle State. How could a small Shikong cultivator like him have the right to question it? Forget it. The results of the written test aren't important. Everything will depend on the combat test. Wizard He Shan felt relieved when he thought about it. After Wizard He Shan, more and more Shikong cultivators obtained high scores. The Shikong tribe, 35 points. The Shikong cultivator got such a high score. Old monster Yan Nan actually got 40 points. How is this possible? The White Ghost Kong cultivator of the White Ghost tribe actually got 45 points. 60 points. The 1,000-men commander of the Wind Summoning tribe, Nan Zhilong. Could this person be the first in the written test? Gradually, only Ning Fan, the sleeping Xian Yuchen and the Dark Sea Mage of the Sea Soul Division who had yet to submit their papers were left. The Dark Sea Master was born to live a simple life. He did not like to get involved in the schemes of the grassland. The Dark Sea tribe was also one of the few tribes that did not mock the Tamu tribe. 12 hours had passed since the start of the written test. The Dark Sea Master kept his eyes closed from the beginning until the 14th hour. Then, he opened his eyes and slightly nodded as if he had learned something. Then, he began to answer his answer. His score had also reached a new high in the last 100,000 years in the southern border. It was 400 points. He actually got 400 points. This person is indeed an old monster who has half a step into the thought fragmentation realm. The depth of his Tao comprehension is definitely the first in the southern border. Some of the cultivators of the southern border were shocked. Isn't this a bit too high? In the entire Debay realm, there are only a few who can get more than 400 points before they reach the thought fragmentation realm. And those who are able to do this, in the future, at the very least, will not be lower than the Wanggu realm. Someone who was good at research discovered this shocking fact. If that was the case, then this Dark Sea Master actually had the qualifications to aspire to the Wanggu realm. Rumor has it that the great emperor of the Middle State has taken a liking to this Dark Sea Master's outstanding perception and wants to take him as a disciple. I did not believe this at first, but now I do. It seems like this sea spirit tribe cannot be offended no matter what. Some old monsters secretly made up their minds. At this moment, the night had arrived. Dark Sea looked a little tired. It seemed like the 14 hours of hard thinking had consumed a lot of his mental energy. However, his eyes were relaxed. He slowly left the examination ground with an otherworldly posture. He looked like an old fisherman who was wandering the Jianghu. It was as if he did not care about anything other than himself. When he was about to leave the examination ground, he slightly turned his head and looked at Ning Fan with a serious expression. Then, he frowned and looked at the sleeping Xian Yuchun. There's no need to talk about this young master of the evil goat tribe. He only got 1 point in the previous written exam. I'm afraid he will directly fall asleep this time. It's not worth mentioning. However, this external cultivator with the surname Ning is an eternal immortal venerable. Even if his cultivation base is restricted, his Tao comprehension will not be restricted. I wonder how many points he will get. I'm afraid it will not be less than 500 points. 500 points. If the Eternal Immortal Venerables were to participate, most of them would get this number. From this point, it could be seen how difficult it was for Dark Sea Master to get 400 points. Dark Sea would never underestimate anyone. However, he did not believe that Ning Fan could do better than those Eternal Immortal Venerables. He was even more confident that if he was also an Eternal Immortal Venerable, he would definitely get more than 500 points. Unfortunately, he had not completely broken through the bottleneck of the thought fragmentation realm. Fortunately, as long as he becomes the disciple of the great emperor of the Middle State, the day of him becoming an Eternal Immortal Venerable would not be far away. Time continued to pass. The 10th hour, the 11th hour, the 12th hour. Xian Yuchun suddenly woke up. He looked at the grassland that was illuminated by the morning sun. He was slightly dazed. Then, he smacked his head and laughed. I forgot that this is the written exam. I actually fell asleep. Ahaha. Ahaha. Immediately, it caused many cultivators in the surroundings to laugh mockingly. Each of the cultivators of the evil goat tribe felt a little embarrassed. They felt ashamed of their young master for falling asleep during the written exam. The patriarch of the evil goat tribe felt his face turn red. The woman he loved the most actually gave birth to such a stupid son. This is really embarrassing. Sigh. Forget it. As your father, I don't expect you to get a good result. Just hurry up and take the exam. Quickly hand in your exam paper. The patriarch of the evil goat tribe shouted angrily. There's no hurry. There's no hurry. My master hasn't handed in his exam paper yet. I will wait for him to hand it in together. Xian Yu Chun was surprised to find out that Ning Fan had not handed in his exam paper either. He suddenly felt a little touched. His master has such a high cultivation base. His comprehension ability must be very high. Why did he take so long to hand in his exam paper? It must be because of him, Xian Yu Chun. He was afraid that he would feel lonely sleeping alone in the examination hall. That's why he came here to accompany him. A good man. A good man. Master. Thank you. Xian Yu Chun took the exam paper. He wanted to write this sentence on the paper and pass it to Ning Fan like a piece of paper. Currently, Ning Fan seemed to be deep in thought with his eyes closed. Thus, Xian Yu Chun did not dare to send him a voice transmission. He only dared to pass him a piece of paper. He could not tell if Ning Fan was thinking or sleeping. If Ning Fan was sleeping and he woke his master up, it would be too unfilial. Oh my, I forgot how to write the words thank you master. Xian Yu Chun felt a headache coming on. He asked his father through voice transmission. The face of the patriarch of the evil goat tribe darkened with anger. Why can't this silly son write such simple words? That's not the main point. The main point is that it's the answer sheet of the mausoleum seizing battle. How can I pass you a piece of paper? This is a serious crime. It's a blasphemy against the prestige of the sacred mountain. Hand in your exam paper now. Don't disturb your master's enlightenment. His words hit Xian Yu Chun's sore spot. How could a good disciple like him, who was born with the 24 filial piety sons, disturb his master's enlightenment? No way. At that moment, he did not want to waste any more time. He casually recalled the scene he saw during the day and realized that his mind was completely blank. Feeling helpless, he could only write some random words on the exam paper and hand it in. Not long after, the score was out. Xian Yu Chun of the evil goat tribe. 500 points. How is this possible? What did Xian Yu Chun write? How could the 5 emperors of Middle State give him a high score of 500 points? I don't believe it. How can a fool get 500 points? Could it be that the 5 emperors of Middle State gave him the wrong score? Shoo. Be careful with your words. We cannot criticize the 5 emperors. A few cultivators who were shocked quickly shut their mouths. Because the old man's gloomy eyes had already locked onto those people who were speaking ill of the 5 emperors. Criticizing the 5 emperors behind their backs was a serious crime. If these people continued to speak, the old man did not mind enforcing the law on the spot to teach them a lesson. Of course, even this low-intelligence corpse demon was a little shocked. After all, no matter how he looked at this Xian Yu Chun, he looked like a fool. He even slept in the exam hall for an entire day. If this kind of person could get 500 points, then anyone could get 1,000 points. Strange, strange. Could it be that this kid is so talented that I couldn't see it? The old man started to doubt his own intelligence. The entire evil goat tribe was in a daze. Even the leader of the tribe who had always been smart could not figure out the situation. It was a pity that Xian Yu Chun didn't understand what was so shocking about 500 points. 500 points didn't seem to be much different from 1 point. 500 minus 1 equals 2, which was 2 points more than 1 point. There was nothing to be surprised about. Why was everyone making a fuss about it? The Dark Sea Mage who was always calm and indifferent also found it hard to calm down. If Ning Fan got 500 points, he could still comfort himself by saying that Ning Fan was an ancient immortal venerable and had the qualifications to surpass him. However, the one who got 500 points was Xian Yu Chun. Even the Dark Sea Mage who did not care about worldly affairs had heard of this fool whose name shook the entire southern border. This person had an extremely high aptitude for cultivation and had a unique understanding of the soul fusion secret technique. However, his mind was not complete. He often did stupid things that made people not know whether to laugh or cry. However, this person was able to get 500 points. This was the literary exam. Only those who were capable could qualify. How could this kid surpass me? What did you write on your answer scroll? The dark sea mage suddenly walked over and asked in a deep voice. It was extremely impolite to ask for the answer of the other party, especially when the literary exam had not ended yet. It was highly likely that the answer would be leaked and others would get a higher score. Fortunately, Ning Fan was the only one who had not submitted his answer. Xian Yu-chun respected Ning Fan as if he was a god. He was not worried that his answer would be leaked to Ning Fan at all. He even felt that his master copying his answer was a kind of recognition from his master. It was something worth celebrating. At that moment, he did not hide his answer anymore and directly said his answer loudly. I only wrote 2 sentences on my answer scroll. Is there a fire? Sorry, I didn't see it. The grass was burned. Sorry, I didn't see it. Xian Yu-chun stretched his body helplessly. Actually, when the old man announced the exam questions, he was already dozing off. He did not see the scene of the wild grass being burned. When his father urged him to answer the questions, he honestly handed in an almost blank answer scroll. He said that he did not see anything and sincerely apologized to the 5 emperors of the Middle State. However, such an answer actually got him 500 points. It was 2 points more than the 1 point he expected. His luck could not be better. Ha! Why can this answer get 500 points? Didn't he not see anything? He didn't even see the exam questions. Shouldn't there be no results? Some cultivators did not understand. The dark sea mage suddenly trembled. He quickly turned his head and looked at the scorched land that was burned. No, no. There was no fire here. This scorched land was fake. The scene of the wild grass coming back to life was also fake. Solve. The dark sea mage suddenly made a hand seal and shouted. The scenery of this place suddenly changed. The scorched land disappeared. There was no trace of being burned. The new and tender wild grass also disappeared. It was the same withered and yellow wild grass that had grown for a season. Illusion technique. It's actually an illusion technique. He, Ming Hai, thought highly of himself. He did not realize that this exam question was just an illusion technique from the beginning. No fire, no wildfire burning the plains, no wild grass coming back to life. It was all an illusion technique. No wonder this kid said he did not see anything. So there was nothing at all. This kid is not stupid. He is obviously very smart but looks stupid. The dark sea mage took a cold breath. All the contempt he had for Xian Yu-chun was swept away and replaced with respect. If the dark sea mage was not wrong, the illusion technique in this exam question came from the hands of the Middle State 5 emperors. Even the majority of broken thoughts could not see through it. This kid could do many things that broken thoughts could not. He deserved to get 500 points. His future was limitless. This child had seen through everything from the very beginning, so he didn't even think about it and directly fell asleep. This kind of playful attitude was something that was rare and precious to cultivators, and it often allowed them to comprehend the truth of the Tao that others couldn't. This kid, he could not compare to him. Young friend, your talent is number 1 in the southern border. I'm afraid even that external cultivator with the surname Ning might not be able to compare to you. The dark sea mage sighed. Wrong, wrong, wrong. That person is my master. How can I compare to even half a hair of my master? He is the true number 1 in the southern border. I only got 500 points. If it was my master, he could easily get 5,000 points. Xian Yu-chun said unhappily. He would not allow the dark sea mage to look down on his master. 5,000 points. Young friend, you must be joking. Since ancient times, there has never been anyone who could get 5,000 points in the first round of the theory exam. Even those great emperors could not do it when they were young. It is normal for that external cultivator with the surname Ning to get 500 points. If it was 1,000 points, it would be very difficult. If it was 5,000, hee. The Dark Sea Mage was shocked by Xian Yu Chun's talent and did not want to become enemies with this genius. Therefore, he only laughed at Xian Yu Chun's nonsense and did not mind. Is 5,000 a lot? Isn't it just 2 points more than 500? Xian Yu Chun was startled. How come no one had gotten this number before? Could it be that he had calculated wrongly? The Dark Sea Mage was startled. Even with his wisdom, he could not understand what Xian Yu Chun meant. 5,000 is 2 points more than 500, what does this mean? 5,000 minus 500, of course it is not 2. Could it be that this sentence has another meaning? Is he hinting something to me? The more the Dark Sea Mage thought about it, the more complicated it became. He vaguely felt that he was being hinted at, but he could not understand the key point. However, there were others who laughed disdainfully. Among them, the one who laughed the loudest was Nan Zhilong of the Wind Summoning Tribe. What a joke! If an external cultivator could get an unprecedented 5,000 points, then all of us cultivators should die of shame. As soon as he said this, countless people laughed along with Nan Zhilong. Xian Yu Chun's face immediately darkened. If it was not because Nan Zhilong's cultivation was too high, he would definitely attack him immediately to protect his master. At this moment, someone suddenly exclaimed. It turned out that Ning Fan had ended his contemplation and handed in his script. His indifferent gaze suddenly turned to Nan Zhilong coldly. Nan Zhilong, who was originally laughing wildly, suddenly felt a bone-chilling coldness. Half of his laughter was directly choked in his throat. It could not go in, could not come out. His face turned red and his heart was trembling. What kind of terrifying gaze is that? This man must not be provoked. Otherwise, a great disaster will surely befall him. Not only Nan Zhilong, but all the cultivators who were swept by Ning Fan's gaze shut their mouths in horror. The entire place fell into dead silence. Xian Yu Chun was extremely excited. What he admired was Ning Fan's domineering manner. Without saying a word, Ning Fan was able to intimidate the weak. What kind of devil might was that? May I know how many points fellow Daoist got? Master Ming Hai's question broke the atmosphere. Master Ming Hai was still very concerned about Ning Fan's results. I don't know. My score hasn't been given out yet. Ning Fan withdrew the coldness in his eyes and pointed at the groove of the beast face on the table. Only then did everyone notice that the groove of the beast face on Ning Fan's table had not been opened even after a long time. This meant that the 5 emperors of the Middle State had yet to give out Ning Fan's score. As time passed, another 2 hours had passed and Ning Fan's score still had not been given out. This was really a strange story in the Great Prairie. There had never been a cultivator who had not received his score after such a long time. Could it be that this person's answer made the 5 emperors of the Middle State unable to decide and give out an accurate score? Many people secretly guessed, but they felt that this idea was a little ridiculous. What kind of answer would make the 5 emperors unable to give out a score? It was a terrible answer. That's not right. Those cultivators who scored 0 points usually got their results very quickly. A particularly good answer. How good must it be for the 5 emperors to find it hard to choose? Middle State, Capital Heaven Peak. The results of the first round of the Mausoleum Seizing Battle must be decided by the 5 emperors of the Middle State together. This was an old rule. Just like the previous years, 4 of the 5 emperors of the Middle State gathered at Capital Heaven Peak to discuss the results of the group cultivators in the first round of the Mausoleum Seizing Battle. Among the 4 immortal emperors, there were Great Emperor Lu Tua and Great Emperor Gu Ling. These 2 were not the ones with the most authority among the 4 emperors. On the contrary, the other 2 emperors had more authority. Of the remaining 2 emperors, one was dressed in red and green with a strange mask on his head that looked like he was smiling and crying at the same time. No one could see his true appearance. His emperor title was Buddha's Sob. It was said that he had comprehended a wondrous technique from the tear of the Buddha statue. As a result, he achieved Tao and used Buddha's Sab as his title. He was only a step away from stepping into the seventh tribulation. The other one was the one with the highest authority among the 5 emperors. He was an old man with an unusually cold face, giving people a feeling of meticulousness. His white beard reached the ground and he was holding an iron crutch that was surrounded by flames. His emperor title was Capital Heaven, and Capital Heaven Peak was his immortal cave residence. There was a teleportation formation on Capital Heaven Peak. From time to time, the papers of the mausoleum seizing battle would be sent over. Every time a paper was sent over, hundreds of disciples of the 4 emperors would read through it first. Those who were not good enough would be given to the 4 emperors for evaluation, and the results would be decided by the 4 emperors together. Normally, the first batch of papers that were sent over were filled in randomly by those who were not in their right mind. Most of them would be given 0 marks. The 3 great emperors, Capital Heaven Do, Lu Tuo, and Gu Ling, didn't care much about these papers. On the contrary, Buddha's Sab great monarch was very interested in them and would read them together with his disciples. Interesting, interesting. As expected, there are many strange papers in this year's theory exam. It's not in vain that I ended my seclusion early to participate in this grand event. It's a pity that Taoist 100 Flowers can't make it here and won't be able to see these funny papers. Hee, what a pity. Buddha's Sab great monarch let out a strange laugh and suddenly looked at Emperor Lu Tuo with deep meaning. Emperor Lu Tuo was slightly startled. Then, he continued calmly, that's right. Taoist 100 Flowers' injuries are too severe and she can't make it here. It's really a pity. Hee, 1,000 years ago, Taoist 100 Flowers entered the ominous region to collect herbs but was besieged by a Triflame's immortal emperor-level corpse devil. I wonder what Taoist Lu Tuo thinks about this. Buddha's Sab great monarch let out a strange laugh. What? Taoist fellow Taoist, are you suspecting that I'm the culprit? Lu Tuo's expression immediately darkened. Hee, I didn't say anything. There's no need for Taoist fellow Taoist to explain so quickly. Before Buddha's Sab great monarch could finish his sarcasm, a reprimanding voice suddenly resounded. Enough. I didn't come to my heaven capital peak today to settle the old scores with you. If anyone dares to do something unrelated, don't blame me for exercising my authority to punish them. As soon as Heaven Capital Great Monarch said that, not only Buddha's Sab Great Monarch and Lu Tuo's expressions changed, even Bone Spirit Great Monarch showed a trace of fear. His expression turned serious and he didn't dare to talk nonsense anymore. The followers of the 4 great monarchs didn't dare to speak anymore. Each of them sat upright and still, confirming the results. Apart from the occasional argument, no one dared to say anything. The atmosphere was quite heavy. The 4 great monarchs didn't talk much either. Occasionally, they would speak, but it was only to comment on the answers. Of course, the one who spoke the most was Buddha's Sab Great Monarch. Not bad, not bad. A little kid from the Sand Wolf tribe of the Yellow Sand Grassland can actually answer such a question on the Tao of Fire. I'll give you 200 points. This is not bad. Someone from the West River Grassland actually answered the 5 Fire and 5 Earth. I'll give you 150 points. This is a little lacking. Let's give you 2 points. Alright, I've forgotten that this kid is your Bone Spirit Great Monarch's disciple. 300 points will do. Chiu Long of the Northern Barbarian Tribe. The Northern Barbarian Tribe is really full of talents. Another person like him has appeared. I'll give him 400 points. Sea Soul Tribe of the Southern Border. Oh, that kid from the Sea Soul Tribe. He should be an old man now, right? His comprehension is very deep. He can actually see a trace of change in the Tao law. This person has the potential to become an immortal venerable. I'll give him 400 points as well. In this written test, there were only slightly more than 10 people who could get 400 points. Most of these people would be remembered by the great monarchs of the Middle Province as their future disciples. Naturally, they wouldn't be stingy in giving them points. 108 grasslands, 3,000 tribes, and 60,000 answers were gradually distributed. The 4 great monarchs had different expressions. Some were disappointed because they might have taken a fancy to a junior, but it didn't satisfy them. Some were delighted because they might have found a good seedling. Suddenly, another answer came into the eyes of the 4 great monarchs. Evil goat tribe of the southern border, Xianyu Chun. There are a lot of good seedlings in the southern border this time. Take a look at this kid's answer. After great monarch Buddha Sob read Xianyu Chun's answer, his eyes slightly narrowed. He passed the answer to the other 3 great monarchs and gave great monarch Lu Tua a strange look. Great monarch Bone Spirit's expression also changed after reading the answer. Even great monarch Tian Du, who was always serious in speech and manner, showed a hint of surprise. Only great monarch Lu Tuo's expression changed. This evil goat tribe brat is quite impressive. He actually saw through fellow Taoist Lu Tuo's illusion technique. Hee. He's really a good seedling. Of course, it's also possible that fellow Taoist Lu Tuo's illusion technique is too lousy, allowing a life immortal junior to see through it. Great monarch Buddha Sob laughed strangely. Humph. This old man's illusion technique naturally can't be wrong. It's this little thing's eyes that are too sharp. Of course, it's also possible that this kid gave a random answer and coincidentally guessed the truth. Lu Tua said coldly. At first, he still had a trace of admiration for Xianyu Chun. However, after being ridiculed by great monarch Buddha Sob, he immediately vented his anger on Xianyu Chun. Guessed? Hee. If this kid can even guess the truth correctly, I'll be even more interested in him. I'll give him 500 points. Does anyone have any objections? Great monarch Buddha Sob asked smilingly. If this kid can see through fellow Taoist Lu Tuo's illusion technique with his life immortal cultivation, then 500 points is definitely not too high. Great monarch Bone Spirit agreed. This old man has no objections. Great monarch Tian Du said with indescribable joy and anger. As such, great monarch Lu Tua naturally couldn't raise any objections either. Xianyu Chun's 500 points was confirmed just like that. The time for the theory test was about to end. There were almost no more test papers being delivered. The few great monarchs were almost ready to wait for the final result of the combat test. Suddenly, another answer paper was delivered. It was also from the southern border. Oh. It's the answer paper of the Tamu tribe. Great monarch Buddha Sob looked at great monarch Lu Tua with a strange expression, causing great monarch Lu Tua to harumph coldly. Most of the great monarchs had heard about Lu Tuo's bullying of the Tamu tribe, but none of them would stand up for the Tamu tribe. After all, the Tamu tribe was just a weak and small tribe. There wasn't any outstanding talent in the tribe that could attract the attention of the great monarchs. Naturally, no one would do such a thankless thing. This answer paper. Great monarch Buddha Sob wanted to use the topic of the Tamu tribe to mock Lu Tua. Suddenly, his expression changed and he was so shocked that he couldn't say a word. The other 3 great monarchs were naturally curious when they saw how shocked Buddha Sob was. They spread out their divine senses to check the answer paper. After reading it, all of them were shocked. There wasn't a single word on the entire answer paper. There was only a circle. A circle with a gap that couldn't be closed. This kid actually saw the completion. Is this a coincidence, or? Chapter 1007. Perfection was the realm that countless quasi-saints pursued. As the descendants of the saints, the 5 emperors of the central state naturally had some understanding of perfection. It could even be said that the tomb-seizing battle itself was closely related to the illusory concept of perfection. The saints were turned into a mountain with 12 mausoleum veins. The mausoleum veins contained the perfection Tao intent left behind by the saint after his death. This perfection Tao intent was a great fortune for any second-step cultivator. One of the benefits of the perfection Tao intent was that it could help a cultivator perfect their divine abilities and cultivation methods, causing them to gradually reach perfection. Lu Tuo Emperor had once paid a huge price in exchange for the opportunity to cultivate in the mausoleum vein of the sacred mountain. He had perfected many of his divine abilities in the mausoleum vein. Because of this, his illusory technique always carried a trace of perfection. This point could only be seen through by those immortal emperors who had a deep understanding of perfection. However, Ning Fan saw through this and drew a circle with a gap on the answer sheet. This young man drew this circle. If it's a coincidence, then it's fine. If it's not a coincidence, then his eyesight is truly terrifying. Not only could this young man see the perfection in fellow Taoist Lu Tuo's illusory technique, but he could also see that the perfection is just an appearance. In fact, there's still a gap. That's why the circle drawn by this young man has a gap. We are not third-step cultivators. Even if we have some understanding in the mausoleum vein of the sacred mountain, how can we truly cultivate to perfection? At most, we can only infuse the concept of perfection into our divine abilities. But even the concept of perfection is extremely difficult to achieve. I want this young man. The number one disciple of my Buddha Weeping Battle sect is none other than this young man. The Buddha Weeping Great Emperor's eyes sparkled. The reason why the 5 emperors of the central state paid so much attention to the first round of the tomb-seizing battle was because they wanted to find some good talents in the prairies. Now that such an outstanding cultivator like Ning Fan had appeared, the Buddha Weeping Great Emperor naturally wouldn't let him go. Once he accepted Ning Fan as his disciple, he would definitely nurture him as the number one disciple. Tian Du Great Emperor received the scroll and looked at the gap repeatedly. The more he looked at it, the more shocked he became. He had a deeper understanding of perfection compared to the other 3 emperors. That was why he could see something that the other 3 emperors couldn't. The incomplete circle on the scroll was not a simple drawing. Every stroke of the scroll contained a trace of Ning Fan's comprehension. Emperor Tian Du held the scroll with one hand while the index finger of his other hand slowly traced the circle that Ning Fan had drawn. His concentration was unprecedentedly focused. Gradually, he sensed a strong qi from the circle. Caught off guard, his hands trembled and he almost lost his grip on the scroll. Imitation. Within this circle, this child had fused a trace of the imitated will of perfection. Is it an imitation of Lu Tuo's illusion? If he had only seen through perfection, he might have been suspected of cheating, but he couldn't rule out the possibility of coincidence. But if this kid was able to imitate it slightly, then this kid would absolutely be slightly terrifying. Even if this kid's imitation was rather crude and clumsy, but it had to be known that this kid had only used a single day to imitate a trace of the intent of perfection. In just one day. How could the Tao intent of a saint be so easily imitated? Emperor Tian Du asked himself. Before breaking through to the immortal emperor realm, he couldn't even see the intent of perfection. Even after breaking through to the immortal emperor realm, it took him countless years to imitate the Tao intent of perfection. Although Ning Fan's understanding of perfection couldn't be compared to his, he had only used a single day to imitate it. This kid isn't a fish in a pond. Emperor Tian Du praised. Oh. It seems like you are very satisfied with this kid. Don't tell me you want to snatch this disciple from this old man. Fo Chi said with a strange smile. Why can't I snatch him? You should know what it means for this kid to be able to see the intent of perfection before breaking through to the immortal emperor realm. If that's the case, even this old man has no choice but to pay attention to this kid. As soon as Emperor Tian Du's words fell, the other 3 emperors' faces turned solemn. In the entire history of Great Bay, there were only 3 people who could see the intent of perfection before breaking through to the immortal emperor realm. The first person betrayed the 3 flames and became the leader of the void flame, causing many immortal emperors of the sacred mountain to tremble in fear upon hearing his name. The second person stole into the sacred tomb and was the first person to successfully rob a tomb. His whereabouts were still unknown until now. The third person was still sitting in front of the sacred ancient stone, comprehending the 10,000 deciphering 1 deciphering 10,000 chants. The fourth person was Ning Fan. Of course, there was one more thing that the celestial emperor did not mention. Even the three of them could not imitate a trace of perfect intent within a day before they entered the immortal emperor realm. However, Ning Fan was able to do it. This only meant that Ning Fan's aptitude was even higher than those three people. Perhaps he was still unknown now, but it was highly possible that he would surpass those three people in the future. As a result, even Emperor Tiandu, who did not like to take in disciples, could not help but have the thought of taking in a disciple and competing with Buddha Tier. It seems like it won't be that easy to accept this disciple. The one sitting in front of the sacred ancient stone seemed to have obtained 3,000 points in the written exam. In my opinion, we should also give him 3,000 points. After all, there are precedents to follow. Emperor Fu Qi said. 3,000 points, huh? This is feasible. Emperor Tiandu nodded slightly. However, when he saw Bone Spirit and Lu Tuo's strange expressions, he couldn't help but feel curious. Why don't the two of you say anything? Do you think that 3,000 points is too high? Fellow Taoist Tiandu, you haven't been to the southern border before. There are some things that you don't know. This Ning Fan isn't a native cultivator of the Pagoda Wood tribe. He's an external cultivator. So, do you think that 3,000 points is too high? Emperor Lu Tuo's tone was full of disdain when he said the words external cultivator. As soon as he said that, the atmosphere turned cold. External cultivator. This young man is actually an external cultivator. Is he really an external cultivator? Emperor Tiandu said coldly. Absolutely. If not, I would also be willing to accept this disciple. Unfortunately, such a talent isn't from my tribe. Emperor Bone Spirit shook his head. The atmosphere turned silent for a moment. Emperor Tiandu casually threw Ning Fan's answer scroll on the table in front of him. The other emperors also didn't bother to look at the answer scroll. How do we determine this young man's score? Emperor Bone Spirit asked. Any number is fine. Since this young man isn't from my tribe, his score isn't important. I'm too lazy to ask about it. Immortal emperors like us don't need to interfere in the martial exam. I still have a cauldron of pills that is about to be completed. I'll go check on the fire now. Fellow Taoists, please help yourselves. Emperor Tiandu said indifferently and turned around to leave. What a pity. What a pity. I'll leave this young man's score to fellow Taoist Bone Spirit and fellow Taoist Lu Tuo. Emperor Fu Qi gave Lu Tuo a meaningful glance and left Tiandu peak with his disciples. Since fellow Taoists Tiandu and Fu Qi have left, I'll leave too. I'll leave this young man's score to fellow Taoist Lu Tuo. You should know that this young man brought a rare medicine soul to my tribe this time. We need to give him a certain amount of respect. Fellow Taoist Lu Tuo, when you decide the score, please abandon your prejudice against external cultivators and Tamu and give him a fair score. As soon as Emperor Bone Spirit's voice fell, Emperor Lu Tuo let out a cold harumph. I don't need fellow Taoist to remind me. That's for the best. The Bone Spirit Great Emperor left with his disciples. Only Emperor Lu Tuo, his disciples, and a few guards of Tiandu Peak were left. Ancestor, how many points are you going to give this young man? A short cultivator among Emperor Lu Tuo's disciples suddenly asked. He's just an external cultivator. Of course, I can't give him too high a score. Hee hee. Giving him points isn't the main point. Take this young man's bone token as well. I can't interfere with the results of the martial exam, but I have a way to stop the Tamu tribe from making a comeback. Emperor Lu Tuo sneered. Time passed slowly. 2 hours had passed since the end of the exam, but Ning Fan's score was still not out yet. Discussions could be heard in the surroundings from time to time, guessing the reason. Ning Fan didn't care about any of this. Ning Fan stood on the grassland with no one around him. He looked at the sky, the ground, and the wild grass that bowed their heads in the wind. His expression was thoughtful. Even if he didn't use his celestial being Dharma eyes, he could see that the blazing wildfire was just an illusion with his Fuli tribe's talent in breaking illusions. Illusions weren't the main point. The main point was that the scene contained unimaginable mysteries and even a trace of perfection. Wildfire can't burn it down. It grows again when the spring breeze blows. The beauty of grass lies in its tenacity, softness, flexibility, and accumulation on the ground. Tenacity means unyielding. Softness means no harm. Taking advantage of the situation allows one to seek luck and avoid calamity. Wildfire can't burn it down. It's not that the wild grass is stronger than the fire. It's that the wild grass knows how to avoid the situation. Although the fire is fierce, its weakness is obvious. Because of its fierce momentum, it can't last long. Eventually, the fire will be extinguished. Although the wild grass is weak, it can take root in the ground and use the terrain to protect itself. Once the fire is extinguished, the grass will be reversed. If I can answer the question of the momentum of the grass, it might be the best answer in the eyes of the question setter. If I can answer the question of the changes of the Tao laws, I'm sure I can get a good result even though it's not as good as the momentum. When the Dark Sea Master handed in his paper, Ning Fan could still see his answer through his spirit sense even though he did not open his eyes. The Dark Sea Master's answer was only slightly related to the changes of the Tao laws and he already got 400 points. If he can answer the question of the complete changes of the Tao laws, he would definitely get a higher result. If he can answer the question of the momentum of the grass, he would probably get a higher result. My answer isn't the momentum of the Tao laws or the changes of the Tao laws. It's perfection. Ning Fan's eyes turned serious. He had drunk Tan Tai Weiyu's clear water wine and seen the perfection in it. In the scene of the blazing wildfire, Ning Fan also sensed a trace of perfection. It wasn't that the person who cast the illusion had cultivated to the perfection realm of the third step. Instead, it was an imitation of the perfection realm. However, the perfection realm was fake and had a huge flaw. For example, the ring was imperfect. It couldn't be compared to the perfection realm in the clear water wine. The reason why Ning Fan drew a circle on the paper was to hint at this point. This place was Great Bay, the place where the descendants of the saints lived. Since the person who came up with the questions could imitate a trace of the perfection realm, he or she would naturally have some understanding of the word perfection. With the shrewdness of the 5 emperors of the middle state, it was impossible for them not to understand the meaning of the circle. Being able to see the perfection realm unique to the third step saints should be better than peeking at the momentum of the Tao laws. Besides, Ning Fan even tried to imitate a trace of the perfection realm in the circle. How could it be so easy to imitate the perfection realm? Even though Ning Fan had the comprehension ability of the second level of the celestial being realm, he could only imitate a very clumsy trace of it. However, what Ning Fan did not expect was that just by imitating a very clumsy trace of the perfection realm, his illusory technique had improved a little. The trace of perfection realm in his illusory technique was originally comprehended by Lu Tua after years of arduous cultivation. It could greatly reduce the flaws of the illusory technique he cast, making it more realistic and perfect. Ning Fan could only slightly increase the power of his illusory technique by imitating Lu Tua. Even so, he had already gained a lot. Unfortunately, the perfection realm that I imitated was obtained by someone else. Because I don't have enough understanding of the perfection realm, the second time I imitated it, there would naturally be more flaws. The perfection realm is not something that the current me can comprehend. Ning Fan felt slightly regretful. Xianyu Chun saw that Ning Fan was still in deep thought and did not dare to disturb him. He stood at one side respectfully. Those who did not know would really think that Xianyu Chun was Ning Fan's disciple. After an unknown amount of time, a clicking sound was suddenly heard from the surrounding discussions. Immediately, everyone's attention was attracted by that sound. They saw that the groove of the beast face on Ning Fan's bone table suddenly opened. The southern region originally did not care about the results of the written exam, but today, all the cultivators here were curious about Ning Fan's results. Xianyu Chun was the first to rush over and picked up the domino token excitedly. However, when he saw the result, he was immediately dumbfounded. How is this possible? Ning Fan's result was actually 0 points. A commotion broke out in the surroundings. After waiting bitterly for 2 hours, such a result was obtained. Immediately, some people who did not like Tamu secretly sneered. This person is an ancient immortal venerable in vain. He can't even get half a point. Of course, it is also possible that someone from the 5 emperors interfered and erased this person's results. If that is the case, could this be done by Great Emperor Lu Tuo? After all, Great Emperor Lu Tuo dislikes the Tamu tribe and hates external cultivators even more. The White Ghost tribe's White Ghost master secretly guessed. He was even more determined to humiliate the Tamu tribe in the written exam in order to gain Great Emperor Lu Tuo's favor. Nan Zhilong heaved a sigh of relief and then laughed. This is the result of offending Great Emperor Lu Tuo. Even if you are an ancient immortal venerable, don't think of standing up for the Tamu tribe. The Dark Sea Master secretly sighed. If the Great Emperor of the Central State interfered, it would be useless no matter how deep your comprehension is. Otherwise, with this immortal venerable's Tao comprehension, how could his score be low? Thus, when the results of the written exam were calculated, the Tamu tribe's total score was 1 point, temporarily at the bottom. The second last Kanjin tribe also got 4 points in the written exam. Each of the Kanjin tribe's cultivators looked at the Tamu tribe's cultivators with a gloating expression. Master, this score must be given wrongly. It's impossible for you to have no results. Xian Yu-chun couldn't believe it. It's fine. Give me the bone tablet. Ning Fan said it was fine, but his eyes had a trace of coldness. He took the bone tablet and glanced at the score on it. 0. Hee hee, what a good 0. Of course, his score couldn't be this low. If it was just 0, the 5 emperors of the Central State wouldn't delay for 2 hours before giving out the results. There must be some other reason behind this. It could be Great Emperor Lu Tuo who interfered. It could also be his identity as an external cultivator that caused trouble. Or it could be both. Although this matter was unfair, he was an outsider and had no leeway to object. Being unable to object didn't mean that he should silently accept everything. Ning Fan tried his best to suppress the negative emotions in his heart. Reason told him that he could still get points in the written exam. There was no need for the Great Emperor of the Central State to decide the score. How many points one could get depended on one's own strength. Thus, the 5 emperors of the Central State couldn't interfere. However, his heart couldn't calm down no matter what. This is... Ning Fan suddenly felt a chill in his heart. A sense of vigilance suddenly rose in his heart. Without any hesitation, he threw the bone tablet away and retreated without saying anything. His spirit sense locked on the bone tablet as if he was facing a great enemy. There was a speck of dust on the bone tablet. It was a speck of greenish-gray dust. Even though it was just a speck of dust, it alerted Ning Fan. There was something wrong with this speck of dust. The exam paper used for this exam was called the display delivery paper and the bone tablet was called the display delivery token. Both of them were special magical tools that could be used to teleport directly to the heavenly capital peak of the Central State through the groove in the beast face. Ning Fan was very sure that before the bone tablet was placed into the groove, it didn't have this speck of dust with a dangerous chi. But now, it did. If it wasn't for his sharp senses, he wouldn't have noticed it at all. The moment Ning Fan let go of the bone tablet, a sudden change occurred. All of a sudden, a green-gray flame burst out from the bone tablet that Ning Fan had thrown far away. It directly hit Ning Fan's chest. Its speed was so fast that it was unimaginable. There was no way for him to dodge it. That greenish-gray object was none other than a speck of dust. It seemed to be light as if it was weightless. However, when it hit Ning Fan's body, it was indescribably heavy. It actually had the force of a landslide. With a loud rumble, it sent Ning Fan flying. The shockwave that was produced shook countless Debay cultivators in the surroundings and made them lose their balance. What happened? Was that external cultivator with the surname Ning attacked by something? What exactly is that terrifying shockwave? That greenish-gray light looks very familiar. Could it be? Impossible. Stone flame cultivators can't leave the ominous territory. Could it be that a stone flame cultivator sneaked into the Debay grassland? Otherwise, why would a stone flame divine ability appear in this place? Even though this external cultivator with the surname Ning's cultivation base is limited, he isn't someone who can be defeated by ordinary stone flame divine abilities. Who is the one who attacked him? What is his cultivation base? Just the aftershock alone killed more than 100 people. All of a sudden, the place was in chaos. Each of the old monsters' expressions changed greatly. They frantically released their spirit sense to search the grassland, trying to find the person who launched the sneak attack. However, they could not find the culprit at all. There were also some Debay cultivators who were upright and honest. They wanted to help Ning Fan to resist that greenish-gray light. However, before they could even get close to it, they were all knocked back by waves of shockwaves. Boom boom boom, the speed of that greenish-gray dust was too fast. It crashed into Ning Fan again and again. Even with the strength of Ning Fan's physical body, he could not completely withstand the force of the collision. He was knocked away by that speck of dust again and again. As a result, he had no choice but to secretly activate a trace of the protective golden light of the God-vanquishing shield in order to completely neutralize the force of the collision. Even so, Ning Fan was still knocked away by that speck of dust. Unbeknownst to him, he had already left the crowd. Once he was far away from the crowd, that speck of dust suddenly hovered above Ning Fan. It grew with the wind and instantly turned into a greenish-gray mountain. There were no plants on the mountain, only bluestones. There was a mouth at the top of the mountain. The middle of the mountain was burning with gray flames. It was actually a volcano. That mountain kept hovering and its momentum became stronger and stronger. It seemed to have already connected with the mountains and rivers of this place. Then, with a loud bang, it smashed down on Ning Fan. Its speed was so fast that it seemed to have landed on the grassland in an instant. Rumble, the entire grassland shook violently for a long time like an earthquake. Only then did it calm down. As for Ning Fan, he was already suppressed by the mountain. Each of the Debay cultivators gasped. Only now did they see the true appearance of the mountain. Bluestone Gray Flame Volcano. This is Shi Yan's ability. It can't be wrong. Could it be that it's really a Shi Yan cultivator who suppressed that external cultivator with the surname Ning? We can't see any traces of Shi Yan cultivators in this place. Logically speaking, it's impossible for Shi Yan cultivators to leave the ominous territory. Could it be that some old monster Shi Yan used a medium to cast a spell to suppress him? This matter must be reported to the central state immediately. As for the martial test, I don't know if it can continue. We have to listen to the central state's opinion. As for that external cultivator with the surname Ning, some of the cultivators of the southern region began to use secret techniques to report what happened just now to the central state. The old man Shi Mo also reported the same thing. However, the reply he received was that the martial test would continue regardless of the weather. The old man Shi Mo landed at the foot of the bluestone volcano with a solemn expression. He tried to cast a spell to blast open the volcano and release Ning Fan, who was suppressed by the mountain. However, he was shocked to find that it was impossible for him to do so with his current cultivation base at the early sense fragmentation realm. The one suppressing this person is at least a stone flame immortal king or even stronger. The old man Shi Mo was secretly shocked. Why would the stone flame immortal king want to suppress an external cultivator? Logically speaking, the cultivators of the three flames immortal king would not reject external cultivators. Why would he do that? Could it be that there is more to this matter? May I ask, what should we do with the martial test? Should we suspend it temporarily and hold it another day? Some of the leaders of the tribes asked. No need. Everything will continue as usual. There must be no mistakes. The old man Shi Mo answered. The external cultivator of my tribe is still being suppressed under this mountain. Please help us save that person. The leader of the Tower Wood tribe, Ta Gu, pleaded. I can't save this person. I can only wait for the central state to send someone to rescue him. It will take at least 3 to 5 days. The old man sure mo said indifferently. What? 3 to 5 days? If I'm not mistaken, this volcano is the special ability of the Stone Flame tribe to suppress their enemies. If the person who is being suppressed is not rescued in time, he will more or less be injured by the scorching chi in the mountain. Besides, this person is a participant of my Tower Wood tribe. If he doesn't participate in the martial test, my tribe won't have any chance of winning. The martial test will begin after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. It's already a foregone conclusion that this person will be trapped here. Unless he can break open this mountain before the martial test ends, he will definitely not be able to participate in the test. According to the rules of the tomb seizing battle, only the cultivators who are on the list before the minor competition can participate in the martial test. In other words, if this person doesn't participate, your tribe can only send 19 people to take his place. As soon as the old man Sure Mo finished speaking, he no longer paid attention to Ta Gu. Instead, he displayed his ability to arrange the venue of the martial test. Ning Fan still felt a little dizzy. It took him a lot of effort to get rid of the dizziness in his head. In front of him was a greenish-gray stone wall space. The space was extremely narrow. It was located in the middle of the volcano. The air was hot and stuffy. There were also greenish-gray flames and smoke that blew past. Ning Fan's heart was cold. He was suppressed by a sneak attack. This was an extremely high-grade suppression ability. Besides, the person who used this ability was definitely not weaker than an immortal emperor. If it wasn't because of this ability, Ning Fan would definitely not be unable to escape and be suppressed under this mountain. This scene was the same as when he was suppressed by Great Emperor Chonghe in the past. He could not even resist. The gap was so huge. The person who suppressed me is at least an immortal emperor. But there is one thing that makes me curious. Which immortal emperor is the one who attacked me? While Ning Fan was guessing, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded in the silent stone wall space. You are traveling together with that 5-colored medicine soul. Due to the rules of the sacred mountain, I can't kill you. However, I can trap you here and force you to submit. If you don't want to die, break free from this punishment ring and rush out of this mountain with your immortal venerable realm cultivation base. The voice was sometimes deep and sometimes soft. It was unpredictable. It seemed to be able to disguise itself, making people unable to tell who it was. However, there was no doubt that it was an immortal emperor realm cultivator. After that voice, there was no more sound. Ning Fan's face turned pale. First, he was erased by the great emperor of the central state. Then, he was trapped in the middle of this volcano. Even with his calm temperament, he could not help but feel angry. With a sway of his body, he attempted to break through the stone wall. However, as soon as he came into contact with the stone wall, numerous cracks that were emitting flames immediately appeared on it. Those cracks kept spreading, seemingly forming formation marks. All of a sudden, an extremely strong restrictive force spread out, forcing Ning Fan to retreat, preventing him from getting close to the stone wall. The formation here is quite profound. However, it's not enough to trap me. Ning Fan's aura suddenly changed. The anger in his eyes disappeared and was replaced by extreme calmness and depth. His eyes were extremely deep like the vast starry sky. Under his gaze, it was as if all the changes in the world could not escape from his eyes. He had actually activated the East Demon Ancestor's ultimate technique, the Secret of Force. In Ning Fan's eyes, be it the stone wall or the flames, they all became the lines of the grand force that intersected with each other. The complicated formation marks on the stone wall gradually became clear in Ning Fan's eyes. After an unknown amount of time, Ning Fan suddenly took a step forward, leaving a golden flame footprint on the stone ground. It was difficult to say how ingenious that step was. With just a single step, it actually messed up the grand force of this place. Once the grand force was in chaos, the formation naturally could not be maintained. Ning Fan did not stop. He took one step after another in a strange manner. Every time he took a step, a strong gust of wind would rise from the ground. After 9 steps, cracking sounds could be heard from the stone wall all of a sudden. It was the formation marks that were damaged. Oh. Is the evil suppressing volcano that I casually learned not enough to trap this young man? Great Emperor Lu Tuo, who was in the central state, suddenly exclaimed softly. At this moment, he had already left the Tian Du Peak with his disciples and was heading back to his cave dwelling. When he noticed that Ning Fan was about to break through the suppression of the volcano, he was no longer in a hurry. Instead, he randomly found a grassland and opened up a temporary underground cave dwelling. Then, he began to cast a spell across the domain. In the space inside the mountain, the stone walls were peeling off layer by layer. The formation was being destroyed by Ning Fan bit by bit. All of a sudden, a red and white flame burst out from the stone wall in front of Ning Fan, heading straight for his face. Ning Fan's eyes suddenly turned serious. This red and white flame was extremely powerful. Its grade was actually at the Xiantian realm. It seemed to be the innate true fire that the person who attacked him had cultivated for many years. Just the heat that came towards him was enough to make him feel a burning pain. If he was burned by this flame, it was possible that he would be severely injured given his current cultivation base. How could Ning Fan dare to underestimate this flame? While retreating, he spat out his own devil flames in an attempt to fight against this flame. The two flames clashed. In just a few exchanges, Ning Fan's devil flames were forced to retreat. After the innate true fire defeated the devil flames, it did not continue to attack Ning Fan. Instead, it just surrounded the space inside the stone wall, as if it was determined to trap Ning Fan there. Ning Fan tried a few times, but he still could not break through the seal of the Sea of Flames. Lu Tuo, who was in the central state, suddenly revealed a satisfied smile. If that's the case, this young man won't be able to make it in time for the martial examination. Ning Fan brought a rare medicine soul into Great Bay. According to the rules of the sacred mountain, Lu Tuo was not allowed to harm Ning Fan's life. He did not like Ta Mu and hated external cultivators even more. Now that Ning Fan wanted to stand up for Ta Mu, he naturally had to suppress him. With his cultivation base, he could trap Ning Fan for a few days with just a little trick. A few days later, even if Ning Fan is rescued, he would have missed the martial examination. Without Ning Fan's Tamu tribe, they would still have no chance to make a name for themselves in the southern state. Of course, if Ning Fan is forced to directly destroy the punishment ring and rush out of the volcano after recovering his cultivation base, that would be even better. As an external cultivator, if he destroys the punishment ring after accepting it, it would be a heinous crime. He would be hunted down by the 5 emperors of the central state. At that time, even if this young man had a rare medicine soul, he would not be able to save his life. As for the Ta Mu tribe, they were Ning Fan's guarantor. If Ning Fan destroys the punishment ring without permission, the Ta Mu tribe would also be implicated. Feng Er, the people of the Ta Mu tribe killed you. Due to my identity, I can't massacre the Ta Mu tribe and avenge you. The only thing I can do is to make sure that the people of the Ta Mu tribe will never rise again. I'm sorry. Lu Tuo's face showed a moment of heartache. Then, it turned into his usual gloomy expression. Those disciples looked at Lu Tuo with burning eyes. Lu Tuo was definitely not a good person. However, he was very protective of his disciples. Therefore, among the 5 emperors of the central state, he was the one who was most popular with his disciples. Let's go. That young man won't be able to escape from my suppression. Lu Tuo Emperor chuckled and left with his disciples. Ning Fan was trapped inside the volcano. Looking at the innate true flames that were trapping him, his eyes flashed with ruthlessness. The power of the phoenix yin yang was secretly circulating within his body. Since I can't break out of the sea of flames, there's no need for me to do so. I'll just devour these innate true flames directly. He had never been a person who would suffer losses, not even in this place where he had to make compromises. Chapter 1008. The Phoenix clan was the king of the winged demons. Their chi was different from the filthy and evil aura of the Fuli clan. They often gave people a sense of nobility and holiness. As soon as Ning Fan circulated the power of the Phoenix Yin-Yang technique, his chi changed. The devilish aura around him gradually disappeared and was replaced by an unprecedented sense of holiness and solemnity. Part of his body began to turn into flames. Then, his entire body turned into raging pitch-black flames. With a sway of his body, he dashed towards the stone wall. The innate true flames that covered the surface of the stone wall began to flicker unsteadily under the suppression of Ning Fan's aura of the Phoenix race. However, the flickering only lasted for a moment and it returned to normal very quickly. As Ning Fan approached the stone wall, red and white waves of flames immediately gushed out from the stone wall. They actually carried a large amount of greenish-gray magma with them and rushed towards Ning Fan in an attempt to stop him. Even though the innate talent of the Phoenix clan was the ability to control fire, Ning Fan's cultivation base was limited. Thus, he naturally did not dare to get sucked into the flames. When he came to a sudden stop, he suddenly performed a series of strange demon hand seals with both of his hands. His primordial spirit flew out from the top of his head and turned into a palm-sized black phoenix. The black phoenix's eyes were cold and emotionless. It ignored the might of the innate fire and opened its mouth to suck in the red and white flames. That action of sucking had mobilized all of the power of the Phoenix Yin-Yang technique. It directly controlled the changes of the Tao laws of fire in this place, preventing the red and white flames from approaching or retreating. It was as if space had been frozen. It could only stand there and allow the black phoenix to absorb it without any resistance. However, the force of the flames was too great. The black phoenix only absorbed a small amount of the flames before its face filled with pain. When it reached its limit, it withdrew from its avatar and turned back into its primordial spirit, returning to Ning Fan's dantian. Due to the limitation of his cultivation base, Ning Fan barely managed to swallow a mouthful of innate true flames from the sea of red and white flames. After swallowing that mouthful of true fire, Ning Fan naturally felt extremely uncomfortable. The red and white true fire that he swallowed was surging violently in his stomach, as if it wanted to escape from his body and wantonly wreak havoc in his body. Fortunately, Ning Fan had already cultivated the Phoenix clan's nirvana innate skill. His internal organs that were burned by the flames could instantly recover in the raging flames. Throughout the entire process, he only felt some pain at most. As a result, that ball of true flames could not escape from his body no matter what. The sea of red and white flames around him seemed to be filled with anger. Its mission was to trap Ning Fan in this place without harming his life. However, it did not expect that Ning Fan would actually devour some of its flames. When the sea of flames condensed, a red and white fire bird flew out from it. The fire bird's appearance was peculiar. It did not look like a four heavens demon seed. When it flew, it could stir up waves of fire that filled the sky. His eyes were filled with ferocity. As soon as he spread his wings, he charged at Ning Fan. Its speed was so fast that in the eyes of ordinary people, they could only vaguely see a flash of fire. Even with Ning Fan's eyesight, it was difficult to catch the trace of the fire bird. After a brief exchange of blows, half of Ning Fan's body was burned into charcoal. Fortunately, in the next moment, Ning Fan's injured parts were restored to their original state within the raging flames. He was reborn from nirvana. This innate true fire has already given birth to a fire spirit. Unfortunately, this true fire has already entered my stomach. It is now mine. Even if you create a fire spirit, you can forget about taking this true fire back. Ning Fan's expression turned solemn. This fire spirit's cultivation base had just reached the immortal king realm of the three eternal tribulations. Even if Ning Fan's cultivation base had not been sealed, he would not be able to defeat it. Now, he did not dare to face it head-on. While retreating, he activated the golden protective light of the God-exterminating shield to its limit. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base, he could not summon the complete God-destroying giant form at all. He could only spread the golden light to a radius of 3 zhang around him. The red and white fire bird ignored Ning Fan's protective golden light. Once again, it ferociously crashed into it. In the narrow space of the stone wall, only a ray of fire could be seen. The power of the collision directly burned off nearly 1 zhang of the golden light. Fortunately, the golden protective light that was incinerated instantly reappeared on its own. Even so, Ning Fan's expression still changed. Even though his cultivation base was sealed at the moment, the god-destroying shield was extremely powerful. Even if its power was not enough, its defense was still not something that an ordinary immortal king could break through. However, this red and white firebird destroyed nearly 1 zhang of the golden light with just a casual crash. It was obvious how terrifying its strength was. When the firebird saw that its furious attack did not cause any damage to Ning Fan, who was just an ant, it was instantly enraged. After shrieking 3 times in a row, the flames around its body surged and it charged at Ning Fan again. This time, the firebird actually got within 1 zhang of Ning Fan, burning away all of the golden light that was more than 2 zhang of his body. It seemed like it was not impossible for the firebird to break through all 3 zhang of the golden light as long as it put in a little more effort. It definitely had the ability to injure Ning Fan, who was protected by the golden light. If it really comes to that, Ning Fan would either have to destroy Xinghuan to restore his cultivation base or use his trump card like Origin Qi to directly kill the firebird. Of course, he did not plan to waste his precious life-saving trump card on a mere firebird, which was one of the 3 eternal tribulations. Similarly, he did not plan to destroy Xinghuan before achieving his purpose of coming here and attract the crazy pursuit of the Great Bay tribe. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. All of a sudden, he pounded his chest and spat out an arrow of blood which merged with the golden light that was protecting his body. His qi instantly weakened by a lot. However, the golden light that was protecting his body spread to a radius of 5 zhang within a short period of time, greatly increasing his defense. As a result, no matter how hard the firebird tried to crash into him, it could not completely break through the defense of the god-destroying shield. As for Ning Fan, he took a healing pill and barely suppressed his injuries. Then, he sat cross-legged within the layers of golden light. Under the resentful eyes of the firebird, he forcibly refined the small amount of innate true fire in his body. Ning Fan could not defeat the firebird. However, it was very easy for him to deal with the innate true fire in his body. Not long after, the innate true fire was completely refined by Ning Fan. The level of Ning Fan's devil flames suddenly improved a lot towards the level of 12 truth flames. Ning Fan did not stand up. After adjusting his breathing for a while, he still sat cross-legged on the stone ground. He patted his head and his primordial spirit flew out again. It turned into the form of a black phoenix and opened its mouth to devour the firebird through the layers of golden light. All of a sudden, the Tao of Earth Fire was once again controlled by the black phoenix. The firebird was startled and hurriedly tried to retreat. However, it could not break free from the black phoenix's control over the flames. A large amount of its innate true fire was still forcibly sucked away by the black phoenix. The firebird let out angry cries and crashed into the golden light even more ferociously. However, it could not break through the layers of golden light that was protecting its body. Ning Fan withdrew his primordial spirit and once again refined the innate true fire in his body. He did not care about the furious firebird at all. When he finished refining the innate true fire, he devoured the innate true fire again and again, nibbling away the flames on the firebird's body little by little. As the process repeated, the qi of the firebird became weaker and weaker. It was no longer as strong as it was at the beginning. 1 day passed. The 2nd day passed. There were only 3 days left for the martial trial. There was only 1 day left before it ended. Ning Fan was trapped in the mountain and did not know what was happening in the outside world. At this moment, he only had one thought in his heart, and that was to make it in time for the martial trial no matter what. He could guess that the immortal emperor who trapped him here did not dare to harm his life. The reason why he was trapped here was to prevent him from participating in the martial trial of the southern region. First, his results were erased. Then, he was ambushed and suppressed on the eve of the martial trial. Ning Fan could almost conclude that these 2 incidents were most likely done by the same immortal emperor or multiple immortal emperors. Ning Fan did not have a good impression of the so-called 5 immortal emperors of the central state. There was even a burning anger in his heart. I promised the Tamu tribe that I would participate in the southern region competition. There is no reason for me to give up halfway. This is the first reason. Zhang Yu specially instructed me to obtain the first place in the southern region. This matter is extremely important and cannot be neglected. This is the second reason. The immortal emperor who schemed against me is not willing to let me participate in the martial trial. How can I let him do as he wishes? This is the third reason. After 2 days of devouring and refining, 70% of the innate true flames here had already been devoured by Ning Fan. The red-white fire bird's body had also shrunk greatly. Its qi was also extremely weak. It no longer had the qi of a third tribulation immortal king 2 days ago. Its qi was roughly at the mid-thought fragmentation realm. The fire bird's eyes were no longer fierce. When it faced Ning Fan, there was a faint fear. The innate true flames cultivated by great Emperor Lu Tuo could transform into 7 fire spirits. It was just one of the weaker ones. Now that Ning Fan had devoured 70% of its flames, it instinctively wanted to escape. How could it still dare to trap Ning Fan here? Unfortunately, it could not escape from this volcano as well. If it was at its peak condition, it could certainly escape easily with its full cultivation base. But now, it was only at the mid-thought fragmentation realm. It was impossible for it to escape. I have already devoured most of the innate true flames here, but I still can't completely break through the 12th level. If I'm not mistaken, the innate true flames that trapped me here are not complete. It's just a part of the innate true flames of that immortal emperor. I'm only 1 step away from completely breaking through the 12th level. After I kill this fire bird and devour all of its fire essence, it will most likely be enough for me to break through the bottleneck of the 12th level. Ning Fan suddenly stood up and coldly stared at the fire bird that was hiding in the corner. Currently, he no longer needed to use the God-vanquishing shield to defend against the fire bird like 2 days ago. The current fire bird was just at the mid-thought fragmentation realm. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base and Feng Yinyang's ability to restrain flames, it was not difficult for him to kill it. Ning Fan could almost imagine how furious the immortal emperor who plotted against him would be after he killed the fire bird. Presumably, that immortal emperor would never have expected that not only did he not die from being trapped in this volcano, but he also found a way to kill the fire spirit of the innate true flames by limiting his cultivation base. Since he dared to plot against Ning Fan, he should be aware that he was going to suffer a great loss. The fire bird seemed to have sensed Ning Fan's killing intent. In its despair, it suddenly gained the courage to stake everything on a single throw. It turned into a ray of fire and charged towards Ning Fan. Its speed was much slower compared to 2 days ago. Ning Fan easily saw through the fire bird's route. His body suddenly exploded, turning into a pitch-black sea of flames that almost drowned the entire stone wall space. All of a sudden, the entire stone wall space was filled with the cries of the fire bird as it struggled. The cries gradually subsided. After an unknown amount of time, the sea of flames disappeared and Ning Fan reappeared. Without saying a word, he sat down with his legs crossed and began to refine the enormous amount of fire essence power in his body. Almost at the same time, a furious roar was suddenly heard from the sitting Oblivion Peak in the central state. How dare you kill my 7th fire spirit? This old man will never rest until one of us is dead. Ning Fan. Ning Fan. Ning Fan. Great Emperor Lu Tuo rushed out of the underground cave with rage. When some of his disciples saw that their old ancestor was enraged, they immediately asked about the cause and effect of the incident. Great Emperor Lu Tuo's face only turned gloomy. He did not tell anyone what exactly happened. It was a humiliation. A great humiliation. He was a dignified immortal emperor. When he schemed against a young immortal venerable whose cultivation base had been sealed, he actually failed and lost one of his fire spirits. If it wasn't for his rationality, Great Emperor Lu Tuo almost wanted to go to the southern state immediately and take Ning Fan's life. Unfortunately, He could not do that. If he went to the southern state now, his scheme against Ning Fan would be exposed first. Besides, if he killed Ning Fan, he would not be able to answer to the sacred mountain at all. Hateful. Hateful. I can't kill you in the open, but I have ways to take your life in the dark. Very good. Very good. What an audacious external cultivator. Just you wait. Great Emperor Lu Tuo gradually calmed down. Instead, he revealed a cold smile and instructed his disciples beside him. How long will it take for your eldest senior brother to come out of seclusion? In reply to Ancestral Master, eldest senior brother has already entered the 6th floor of the Fire Spirit Tower. He won't be able to come out of seclusion for at least 100 years, let him come out of seclusion earlier. Tell him that there is an item in this grand competition of the middle state that is very beneficial for him to break through to the immortal venerable realm. If he misses it, it will be a great loss. Of course, I also have some personal matters that I want him to deal with. Tell him to come and see me as soon as possible. Yes. There was only half a day left before the end of the martial test. The written test tested one's comprehension while the martial test tested the overall strength of the tribe. At this moment, not far away from the volcano, the grassland of the Summoning Wind tribe was divided into 35 areas. Each tribe of the southern state occupied a vast grassland to conduct the martial test. The test of the martial test was to hunt fire spirits. According to legend, before the herb gatherer saint died, he had shattered his own sacred flames and scattered them under the ground of the Great Bay grassland. After a long time, the broken flames turned into living beings and turned into the fire spirit clan. They were suppressed underground forever and could never appear on the surface. Naturally, the seal of the saint was not something that ordinary people could covet. Countless cultivators had tried to sneak into the ground of the Great Bay grassland to search for the broken sacred flames sealed by the saint, but to no avail. Later on, a Saint Mountain celestial emperor found a strange talisman in the Saint Mountain mausoleum. After activating it, he accidentally summoned an extremely powerful immortal emperor fire spirit from the Great Bay grassland. He was caught off guard and was almost killed by the fire spirit. Shocked, the Saint Mountain celestial emperor summoned a few more celestial emperors and fought hard for many days before they finally killed the fire spirit. They also obtained a fire crystal from the fire spirit. After refining it, their cultivation of the fire Tao improved greatly. After tasting the fire spirit, the Saint Mountain celestial emperor tried to imitate the talisman of the saint in his memory and activated it again. He could still summon fire spirits from anywhere in the Great Bay grassland. After killing the fire spirit, there was still a fire crystal. Unfortunately, without the talisman personally drawn by the saint, it was impossible to summon an immortal emperor fire spirit. At most, it could only summon fire spirits with true immortal cultivation. If a celestial king or celestial venerable drew a talisman, the fire spirit's cultivation level would be even lower. If a broken thought cultivator drew a talisman, they wouldn't be able to summon any fire spirits at all. The Saint Mountain celestial emperor studied the talisman several times before they figured out the secret of the talisman. It turned out that the talisman was a summoning talisman created by the Saint Mountain celestial emperor. It was specifically used to summon fire spirits from underground in the grassland. In the past, the first round of the tomb seizing martial test would be to hunt fire spirits. First of all, the fire spirits in the Great Bay grassland were almost inexhaustible. When hunting, they would be summoned as soon as they were summoned, so there was no need to prepare too much. Second of all, after killing the fire spirits, one could obtain fire crystals. These fire crystals were mostly of very low quality and were dispensable to the ancient monsters. However, if they were given to the tribes below, they could greatly improve the fire Tao of the low-level cultivators of the tribes. It was a very good reward for the martial test. Of course, there was a flaw in this talisman, which was that it could only be drawn by an ancient celestial venerable. Every time it was drawn, it would consume a lot of energy, so it couldn't be mass-produced. Fortunately, there would only be a tomb-seizing war once every 1,000 years. After 1,000 years of accumulation, the Saint Mountain celestial emperor was able to cope with the consumption of the tomb-seizing war. In this southern border minor competition, each tribe was given 50 low-grade fire summoning talismans, 20 mid-grade fire summoning talismans and 5 high-grade fire summoning talismans. The low-grade fire summoning talisman could be used once to summon a fire spirit of Crossing Truth Realm randomly. As for which stage of Crossing Truth Realm it would depend on luck. It could be an early stage Crossing Truth Realm fire spirit or a peak stage Crossing Truth Realm fire spirit. The troublesome thing was that no matter what stage Crossing Truth Realm it was, killing one fire spirit would count as 10 points. The mid-grade fire summoning talisman could summon a Shedding Void fire spirit. Killing one fire spirit would give 100 points. The high-grade fire summoning talisman could summon a Fragmentary Thought fire spirit. Killing one fire spirit would give 1,000 points. Each tribe could decide how to use the fire summoning talisman. For a weak tribe like the Tamu tribe, they didn't have the Shedding Void fire spirit. They usually only dared to summon Crossing Truth fire spirit. They never dared to use the mid-grade and high-grade fire summoning talisman. Once a Shedding Void fire spirit or Fragmentary Thought fire spirit was summoned, it would undoubtedly be a calamity for the weak Tamu tribe. It should be known that the summoned fire spirit was extremely ferocious and would kill anyone it saw. The unused fire summoning talismans would have to be returned to the Saint Envoys who were supervising the minor competition after the martial competition ended. If each tribe used up all their fire summoning talismans, they could go to other tribes and snatch the fire spirits of other tribes. They could also increase their points. The Tamu tribe was extremely sullen. They only got 1 point in the written exam. Until now, they still didn't get any points in the martial competition. Until now, the Tamu tribe had summoned a total of 11 Crossing Truth fire spirits. All of them were snatched and killed by other tribes. As for the 12th Crossing Truth fire spirit that they summoned, no one came to snatch it because it was a fire spirit that was half a step into the Shedding Void realm. To the weak Tamu tribe cultivators, it was simply a calamity. Even if the 19 Tamu tribe cultivators joined forces, they were still unable to defeat that fire spirit that was half a step into the Shedding Void realm. Instead, more than 10 of them were seriously injured by that fire spirit. At this moment, the remaining 2 Dujin cultivators of the Tamu tribe were still leading the remaining 5 Tamu Fate Immortals to hold on. These 2 people were dressed as shamans, and their cultivation was only at the early stage of Dujin. Naturally, they didn't dare to fight the fire spirit head-on. Instead, they used the formation set up in advance to tangle with the fire spirit. However, the fire spirit was too powerful, and the Tamu tribe's cultivators were getting fewer and fewer, causing flaws to appear in the formation. Soon, the fire spirit caught a flaw and pounced on one of the Dujin cultivators. That Dujin was careless and half of his body was burned by the fire spirit. Only his primordial spirit escaped by a hair's breadth. However, he was seriously injured by the fire spirit and couldn't fight anymore. He had no choice but to withdraw from the martial competition. In this way, only the last Dujin cultivator of the Tamu tribe was still holding on. It was even more difficult to maintain the formation. The situation was very dangerous. Among the remaining 5 Tamu Fate Immortals, there were people who were seriously injured by the fire spirit and withdrew from the martial competition. In the end, only Dujin was left in the Tamu tribe. The formation that trapped the fire spirit originally required many people to work together to activate. Now that there was only one person left, it had completely lost its effect. This Dujin cultivator's name was Satang. At this moment, his eyes were obviously filled with despair. However, there was more anger and resentment. Not far away, a few tribes had sent out peak Dujin cultivators to snatch the weak fire spirits of the Tamu tribe. Every time the Tamu tribe summoned an early or mid-Dujin cultivator, these people would come and snatch it. When the Tamu tribe unluckily summoned a half-step Shedding Kong cultivator, these people just stood by and watched. They didn't intend to interfere at all, allowing the Tamu tribe members to be severely injured by the fire spirit. If even Sa Teng was seriously injured by the fire spirit and withdrew from the martial competition, the overall result of the Tamu tribe today would be the lowest in history. They would end up with a 1-point disadvantage. Of course, the Tamu tribe still had another participant who had yet to withdraw. However, Ning Fan was currently being suppressed under the volcano. No one thought that Ning Fan could break out of the seal and make it in time for the martial competition under the premise that his cultivation base was limited. The tomb-seizing battle of the Tamu tribe was about to end. This Sa Teng is already at his limit. Even if he has an acquired magical treasure to protect himself, his magic power can no longer sustain him. In less than 100 breaths, he will definitely be defeated. A Peak Dujin cultivator from the White Ghost tribe said with certainty. This time, the Tamu tribe will most likely leave the tomb-seizing battle with a total score of 1 point. I wonder if Great Emperor Lu Tuo will remember our contribution when he learns about this. A Peak Dujin cultivator who participated in the seizing of the Tamu tribe's fire spirits said with anticipation. He was from the Corpse Preservation tribe. What a pity. If that external cultivator surnamed Ning was here, the Tamu tribe's result would most likely be higher. A Peak Dujin cultivator from the Evil Goat tribe sighed. He stayed near the Tamu tribe not to snatch the fire spirits. Instead, it was the young master's order. If the cultivators of the Tamu tribe were severely injured by the fire spirits, this person must save them. If it wasn't for this person, the cultivators of the Tamu tribe wouldn't only be severely injured and retreat. Many of them would have died. The strength of the half-step empty fire spirit wasn't something that ordinary people could deal with. I really don't understand what your Evil Goat tribe is thinking. It's fine if you don't suppress the Tamu tribe, but you actually sent people to protect the cultivators of the Tamu tribe. Your young master is indeed the #1 idiot in the southern border. Don't tell me he doesn't know that his actions will most likely enrage that person in the central state. A Peak Dujin cultivator from the Black Mountain tribe sneered. This Peak Dujin cultivator from the Evil Goat tribe didn't argue. He also felt that the young master's decision was inappropriate. However, due to his loyalty to the young master, he still carried out the young master's order and protected the cultivators of the Tamu tribe. Seeing that the last cultivator of the Tamu tribe, Sa Teng, was about to be severely injured by the fire spirits, this Peak Dujin cultivator from the Evil Goat tribe sighed slightly and prepared to save the cultivators. Suddenly, his gaze changed and revealed a shocked expression. It was the sound of a landslide coming from the direction of the volcano. What happened? Could it be that the external cultivator surnamed Ning who was suppressed under the volcano can escape? Even the Saint Envoy couldn't break the seal of the mountain. Unless that external cultivator surnamed Ning destroys the ring and recovers his cultivation, he won't be able to escape. Could it be that he destroyed the ring? This is a heinous crime in our Great Bay. On the grassland, cries of surprise sounded one after another. At this moment, there were only 2 cultivators near the volcano. One of them was Xian Yu Chun and the other was Duo Lan. Duo Lan and Xian Yu Chun had been waiting near the volcano for a long time. Duo Lan was Ning Fan's soul lock slave. Before Ning Fan took the initiative to remove the soul seal, she and Ning Fan had gone through thick and thin together. If something happens to Ning Fan, her life would also be in danger. Now that Ning Fan was suppressed under the mountain, Duo Lan did not know who was scheming against him. She also did not know if Ning Fan was in danger in the mountain. Naturally, she was somewhat worried. Staying near the volcano, how could she have the mood to pay attention to the progress of the martial trial in the southern region? Xian Yu Chun, on the other hand, was interesting. He directly withdrew from the martial trial and took out an iron shovel magic treasure. His expression was extremely anxious. He actually wanted to flatten the mountain and hollow it out to save Ning Fan. This infuriated his father to no end. The leader of the Evil Yang tribe originally planned to rely on Xian Yu Chun's soul combination technique to lead the cultivators of the Evil Yang tribe to achieve a good result. It was highly possible that they could even compete for the first place. However, who would have thought that this rash kid actually withdrew from the martial trial? He was even stupid enough to use a shovel to dig the volcano that even the Saint Apostle couldn't break open. This subordinate can't stand it anymore. It's fine if the young tribe leader is mischievous in the past, but he actually did it in the martial trial as well. He didn't put the interests of the evil young tribe in his heart at all. You should know that we have prepared for 1,000 years for this competition in the southern region. After obtaining the first place in the southern region, we will head to the central region and participate in the second round of tomb seizing. For this competition, we have made many plans that revolved around the young tribe leader's soul combination technique. However, the young tribe leader actually withdrew from the martial trial. Not only that, he even sent a peak-crossing truth cultivator to save Tamu. This action not only depleted the strength of our tribe but also offended Great Emperor Lu Tuo. Why didn't the tribe leader stop this? A few elders of the evil Yang tribe questioned. The tribe leader of the evil Yang tribe did not speak. He was also disappointed with Xian Yuchun's action of ignoring the interests of the tribe. He even had the thought of abolishing his position as the young tribe leader. On the other hand, he felt even more pity for this son. What he felt pity for was this foolish child's pure heart. His mother was crushed to death by the volcano divine ability of the rock flame cultivator. The tribe leader of the evil Yang tribe suddenly opened his mouth. He seemed to be talking to himself but also seemed to be talking to the few elders of the evil Yang tribe. There was a trace of grief on his face. That woman was Xian Yuchun's mother and also the woman he loved the most. Tribe leader, what are you saying? We asked the tribe leader to abolish Xian Yuchun's position as the young tribe leader. We asked the tribe leader not to avoid this matter and change the topic. A few elders said in dissatisfaction. The tribe leader of the evil Yang tribe did not pay attention to these elders. He continued to look at Xian Yuchun, who was sweating profusely as he dug the mountain. This child ignored the interests of the tribe. He was not fit to be the young tribe leader. However, this child had a pure heart that was different from other cultivators. This point was the most valuable in the cultivation world where interests were paramount. Outsiders only knew that the tribe leader of the evil Yang tribe had taken a fancy to Xian Yuchun's cultivation talent and made an exception to let a foolish person become the young tribe leader of the evil Yang tribe. However, they did not know that what the tribe leader of the evil Yang tribe had taken a fancy to was that pure heart. Under the suppressing volcano, Duo Lan was speechless as she looked at Xian Yuchun, who was bitterly digging the mountain. She naturally did not plan to help this kind of almost futile action. The suppressing volcano did not have soil, only stones. Moreover, they were not ordinary stones. They were stones formed by divine ability and were abnormally firm. Xian Yuchun, who was only at the life immortal realm, was holding a magic treasure that had not even entered the post-celestial realm. Naturally, he would not be able to dig through the mountain rocks. There were already many gaps in his iron shovel. His hands had also been shaken to the point that they were dripping with blood from the recoil of digging the mountain. He could not feel the burning pain in his hands. He only anxiously dug the mountain. Even if he could not dig out even a single piece of rock, he did not give up. There was a trace of confusion and grief in his eyes. At this moment, what he wanted to dig up wasn't the volcano that suppressed Ning Fan, but the mountain that killed his mother in the past. Can't dig, can't dig, can't dig, why can't I dig? Why? I don't believe it, I don't believe it. Bang, the iron shovel finally could not bear the burden and broke into two. Xian Yuchun threw down the iron shovel like a madman and directly knelt on the mountain rock. His hands were badly mangled as he dug at the hard mountain rock. Can't dig, can't dig, can't dig, why can't I dig? I don't believe it. Xian Yuchun suddenly roared towards the sky. Blood and tears flowed out from his eyes. His mouth muttered a word. Mother, mother, I'm sorry. This child is useless. I can't save you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Rumble, the suppressing volcano suddenly shook violently. There were even sounds of collapsing coming from the inside of the mountain. The loud rumbling instantly attracted the attention of all the cultivators here. It also caused Xian Yuchun's eyes to gradually wake up. Bewitched, bewitched again. Mother is already dead. The person trapped in the volcano is not Mother, but Master. Master actually escaped. Xian Yu Chun wiped the blood and tears, sweeping away the sadness on his face. He suddenly laughed towards the sky. Worthy of being the master that he fancied. Even being suppressed by an immortal emperor, he could still escape. He, Xian Yu Chun, did not misjudge him. Bystanders could not see that this was a divine ability used by an immortal emperor, but he, Xian Yu Chun, could see it. Because he personally felt the terror of the suppressing volcano, and because of his mother's matter, he researched a lot about the suppressing volcano's divine ability. Because he could see this, he was worried about Ning Fan's safety and was shocked by Ning Fan's escape. The volcano's collapse became more and more serious. Xian Yu Chun did not dare to stay on the volcano any longer and flew away. The moment he was far away, the entire volcano suddenly split open like a gourd and exploded. A white-clothed figure with a soaring flame rushed out from the volcano and straight into the clouds. It was Ning Fan who escaped. There were many cultivators with keen eyesight here. They felt the flame aura on Ning Fan's body and sucked in a cold breath. It's actually the 12 Shades True Flame. This external cultivator surnamed Ning is quite amazing. Looking at the entire Great Bay, not many people have such a flame. This person, a mere external cultivator, actually has it. Chapter 1009. His white robes fluttered in the wind while his black flames burned fiercely. After killing the fire spirit and devouring its fire essence, Ning Fan's devil flame had crossed the last line and completely broke through to the 12 hidden level. At this moment, his body was surrounded by devil flames as he stood in the sky. The pressure of the flames was even stronger because of the yin-yang phoenix, causing the temperature of the grassland to rise abruptly. It even made the flames in the bodies of all the cultivators of Debay tremble. They looked at the figure in the sky with fear. It was as if it was not a human but an emperor that walked out from the flames. Everyone in the Debay clan was a pill refinement master. Naturally, all of them were fire cultivators. However, it was rare for their flames to reach the 9 hidden level and above. Those who reached the 12 hidden level were even rarer. Even if there were, they would usually be the result of bitter cultivation of those ancient existences. Besides, the might of those people's 12 hidden level was rarely as powerful as Ning Fan's. As a result, the exclamations on the grassland became louder and louder. It was because of Ning Fan breaking out of the seal and also because of the might of the devil flames. I'm finally free. Looking at the time, there should be only a little more than 5 hours left before the end of the combat test. Ning Fan withdrew his devil flames. His body flashed and appeared on the grassland as if he had teleported. He did not participate in the battle immediately but landed next to Xian Yu Chun, who was not far away. Xian Yu Chun looked at Ning Fan excitedly. His eyes were filled with passion. He was still immersed in the shock of Ning Fan breaking out of the seal. Ning Fan looked at Xian Yu Chun's badly mutilated hands and sighed softly. Even though he had just broken out of the seal, the mountain was already useless to him after he killed the firebird. It could not trap his all-pervasive spirit sense to see what was happening in the outside world. This Xian Yu Chun actually wanted to dig the mountain to save someone. With his cultivation base and strength, this action was almost stupid. However, it was done with good intentions and out of sincerity. He did not even ask for anything in return. According to Ning Fan's understanding, this Xian Yu Chun was not a good person in nature. Instead, he was a tyrant of the southern border. The reason why he was willing to do this was because he respected Ning Fan from the bottom of his heart. If it was someone else who was trapped, he would certainly watch coldly from the side. The combat test and the possibility of offending an immortal emperor were also thrown to the back of his mind. With his limited intelligence, he did not even bother to think about everything and just acted to save the person. Ning Fan did not intend to take him as a disciple. However, today, he was a little impressed. Even though Xian Yu Chun's mind wasn't complete, there was a stubbornness in his bones. Daring to use his flesh and blood to shake the volcano created by an immortal emperor, such courage was rarely seen. It wasn't that he wasn't afraid at all. It was just that the person he wanted to save was trapped in the volcano. Therefore, he had to dig the mountain open no matter what. Even if there was no hope, he would, and the mountain would be. Even if the entire world laughed at him, even if he became the enemy of all worlds, even if the world was destroyed, he would never change his heart. What surprised Ning Fan even more was that when this young man roared at the sky, it actually gave him a kind of feeling, causing the bottleneck of his mid-shedding void realm and demon realm cultivation base to loosen a little. He even had a feeling that his heart tribulation was about to descend. This young man's mind is incomplete. However, because of that, he is purer and closer to the Tao. Even though he did not really save Ning Fan appreciated his kindness. Fan, Yang Yang IMS. Fan. Yang Yang Energy, Spirit Yang. Mountain, Yang Fan. Yang Fan. With a flip of his hand, Ning Fan took out a pill bottle and gave it to Xianyu Chun. Then, he walked past him. Xianyu Chun was so moved that his eyes were brimming with tears. He had actually received a reward from his master. That expression was too cold and callous. That tone was too domineering. That gesture, that temperament, TSK, as expected of his master, this was not something he could imitate in a day and a night. Let's see what master has rewarded us with. Xianyu Chun opened the bottle and checked it with his divine sense. He immediately gasped. It was a 9-revolution golden pill. Furthermore, it was an elixir pill that he had never seen before. It was most likely an elixir pill from the eastern heavens. Looking at its medicinal effects, it seemed to be used for healing injuries. It was just that the grade of this medicinal pill was a bit too high. One had to know that even though he was the young clan lord of the evil goat tribe, if he wanted to use a 9 revolutions golden pill, he would need the unanimous consent of all the elders. He would also need to go through 3 rounds of examination and 3 rounds of reconsideration. This was because the 9 revolutions golden pill was a precious treasure to any of the southern border tribes, and it could not be used easily. However, Ning Fan just casually gave him one. Master is really generous. Congratulations on breaking free, senior. Duo Lan is willing to use my connections in the Middle State to investigate the person who plotted against senior. I feel that this matter was not done by the cultivators of the Stone Flame tribe. Instead, it was some old monsters who imitated the abilities of the Stone Flame tribe. Duo Lan walked towards him and secretly transmitted her voice to him. She did not dare to reveal her identity as a soul-locking slave in front of outsiders. Therefore, her facial expression was very cold, but her tone was extremely humble and respectful. There's no need for that. I can roughly guess who the mastermind is. During the few days that I wasn't around, the Tamu tribe only has one person left, huh? Ning Fan frowned slightly and spread his spirit sense towards the grassland where the participants of the Tamu tribe were. In that direction, only Tamu Duzhan was left, who was struggling to hold on. Tagori and the others were looking at his direction with pleasant surprise. During the few days that senior wasn't around, many tribes bullied the Tamu tribe. Unfortunately, Duo Lan is an outsider and not a participant. Thus, I can't intervene in this matter. Duo Lan still wanted to talk about what happened to the Tamu tribe. However, Ning Fan did not even have the time to listen to her carefully. With a flash, he flew towards the grassland where the Tamu tribe was located. Duo Lan curled her lips and swallowed all the words that she wanted to say. She had no choice but to fly together with Ning Fan. However, before they entered the area of the combat test, they were stopped by the corpse devil old man. You are not a participant, so you cannot enter this place. Duo Lan could only stop and watch the combat examination from afar. There are only 10 hours left. I wonder if senior's arrival will be able to lead Tamu to obtain a good result. It would be great if we can obtain the first place in the southern border, Tamu martial test area. Ning Fan whizzed through the air like a ray of light. His aura force soared to the sky. Sateng, whose magic power was nearing exhaustion, had already given up all hope under the pursuit of the fire soul. At this moment, seeing his savior arrive, he was overjoyed and shouted, "Senior Ning, Save me. As soon as the half-step void-shedding fire soul saw Ning Fan's arrival, it immediately shifted its killing intent and stopped chasing after Sateng. From Ning Fan's body, the fire soul sensed an extremely delicious flame qi. That qi was tempting him and driving his killing instinct. I must kill him. I must devour his flames. I must kill him. Roar, the fire soul's roar was filled with killing intent. It could actually trigger a trace of change in the Tao of fire. One should know that to any cultivator who had yet to enter the eternal era, such an action was extremely heaven-defying. The fact that the fire soul could achieve such a feat with its half-step void-shedding fire soul's cultivation base made it even more extraordinary, even if it was just an extremely weak trace. However, a half-step void-shedding fire soul was still just a half-step void-shedding fire soul. It could not cause any great waves, let alone kill Ning Fan. Ning Fan did not even give the fire soul a chance to attack. As his devil flames spread out, his entire being dashed forward like a fiery shadow. All of a sudden, he flew across the grassland and passed by the fire soul. At the moment when they crossed each other, the fire soul was directly burned into ashes. When the peak realm Du Zhen who was watching from nearby saw this scene, all of them were shocked. One should know that the fire soul was a spirit that was born from fire. Its resistance towards fire attacks was naturally extremely high. However, in front of Ning Fan's 12 Adoration True Fire, it still ended up being killed instantly. What a terrifying devil flame! The changes in the law that it contained were even beyond the comprehension of Du Zhen. Thank you for saving me, Senior. Sateng's eyes were burning with passion. Even though there was not much time left for the combat test, as long as Ning Fan could make it in time, the Towerwood tribe still had a chance to turn the tables. You should retreat and recuperate. I alone am enough for the combat test of the Towerwood tribe this time. As soon as Ning Fan said those words, Sateng who had been severely exhausted felt as if he had just been pardoned. He handed all of his fire-summoning talismans to Ning Fan and hurriedly withdrew from the combat test. None of the people of the Towerwood tribe criticized Sateng for withdrawing from the combat test because Ning Fan was still here. Everyone was in high spirits. Their fighting spirit was high. They deeply believed that as long as Ning Fan was here, it would be enough. Ning Fan's devil might was extremely terrifying. Especially at this moment, it carried a hint of anger. He even gave off an aura that kept strangers away from him. However, the feeling he gave his companions was that he was very reliable. After all, he was an immortal venerate whose cultivation base had been sealed. This is... Ning Fan suddenly saw a fiery red crystal core among the ashes of the fallen fire soul. He raised his hand and sucked it into his palm. According to Ning Fan's understanding of the combat test, this seemed to be a unique fire crystal produced by hunting fire souls. Before he had the time to take a closer look, 10 Peak Crossing Truth Realm cultivators landed at the same time. They surrounded Ning Fan and scolded him. How did you escape from the volcano? Could it be that you have destroyed the punishment ring? As cultivators of the Towerwood tribe, we have the right to examine your punishment ring. If it is true, you are going to face a great calamity. You did not participate in the competition on time. Now that you have broken the seal, I'm afraid you have already lost the qualification to participate. Why are you still not leaving? What are you waiting for? The last person of the Towerwood has already withdrawn from the competition. This dead half-step void-rending fire soul should not be counted in the result of the Towerwood tribe. The final result of the Towerwood tribe is still 1 point. If it was Dong Tian Du Zhen, he would not dare to shout at the dignified Rain Lord like this. However, this was the Towerwood tribe. The cultivators here were born with the pride of their tribe. Even when facing Ning Fan, they still had a superior attitude. The coldness in Ning Fan's eyes became even more intense. Hee. Are they all here to suppress the Towerwood tribe? Firstly, as far as I know, participating in the competition halfway will not disqualify you. This has happened before in the history of the southern border. Ning Fan said expressionlessly. As soon as his words fell, a few people's expressions changed slightly. It seemed like they did not expect Ning Fan to have such a thorough understanding of the minor competition in the southern border. Their previous deceit made them feel embarrassed. Secondly, my punishment ring is still here. In this way, it is not considered as violating the rules of the Tower Wood tribe. Ning Fan's primordial spirit left his body. The damaged ring was still there, which was enough to prove that Ning Fan did not lie. Then, his primordial spirit returned to its original position. Some cultivators were inwardly shocked. Ning Fan really rushed out of the volcano that even the Broken Thought's sacred envoy could not get out of with his restricted cultivation base. Thirdly, as far as I know, there is another rule in the combat test. You are allowed to enter the combat testing area of other tribes to snatch and kill the fire souls. You are not allowed to hurt others in the combat test. However, if you step into the combat testing area of other tribes and try to snatch the fire souls, you will only have yourself to blame if you get attacked. You are all trying to snatch the fire souls in my Tower Wood combat testing area. In this case, even if I attack you, it won't be against the rules of the combat test, right? As soon as he said that, the Peak Truth Crossing Realm cultivators who had snatched the fire souls of the Tower Wood had a drastic change in expression. They turned around and wanted to run out of the combat testing area. Listening to what he said, he actually wanted to attack the various tribes of the southern border as an external cultivator. This person is really audacious. These people were not slow in running. Unfortunately, they could not run away. Ning Fan's figure flashed and appeared behind each of the Peak Truth Crossing Realm cultivators like a ghost. With a raise of his hand, he sent each of them flying away while coughing out blood. All of them were thrown out of the combat testing area of the Tower Wood like rubbish. Killing was not allowed in the combat test. Thus, Ning Fan only severely injured these people who bullied the Tower Wood. Even so, it still caused the people of the Tower Wood to cheer. They finally got rid of the resentment in their hearts. Daring to snatch the fire souls of the Tower Wood tribe and stepping on the Tower Wood tribe to curry favor with Emperor Luo Tua, this was the consequence. How dare you? How dare a mere external cultivator injure the cultivators of my White Ghost tribe? The White Ghost sorcerer cultivator who was hunting the fire souls in the combat testing area of the headquarters was enraged. How ruthless! The cultivators who were injured by this person will definitely not be able to recover without resting for 100 years. I'm afraid that if it wasn't for the rules, this person would even dare to kill them. There were also some tribes who were fearful of Ning Fan. When the Peak Truth Crossing Realm cultivator of the Evil Goat tribe saw Ning Fan rushing towards him, he was so scared that his soul almost left his body. He was afraid that he would be thrown out of the combat testing area along with Ning Fan. His mouth was agape and he wanted to explain something anxiously. To his surprise, Ning Fan did not attack him. Instead, he just raised his hand and stirred up a gust of wind, gently sending him out of the combat testing area of the Tower Wood. I've seen some of the things you did to help the Tower Wood. I won't hurt you. The young clan leader of your tribe isn't here. Quickly go and help your tribe to hunt the fire souls and improve your results. Ning Fan transmitted his voice to that person. The Peak Truth Crossing Realm cultivator of the Evil Goat tribe heaved a sigh of relief and immediately returned to the combat testing area of the Evil Goat tribe to help the cultivators of the headquarters to hunt the fire souls. Ning Fan had severely injured more than 10 Peak Truth Crossing Realm cultivators in just a single exchange. Not only did it shock some people, it also caused some of them to be angry and curse at him. Ning Fan did not care about those curses at all. He scanned the 35 combat testing areas with his spirit sense and came up with a plan. The total score of the Tower Wood tribe was originally only 1 point. After he killed a half-step void abandoning fire soul, his score rose to 11 points. Currently, this score was still at the bottom. Even the True Khan tribe, which was second from the bottom, also had 44 points and had successfully killed 4 True Crossing Realm fire souls. Most of the tribes had scored more than 500 points. As for those large tribes, basically none of them had less than 1,000 points. Currently, the Wind Summoning tribe was ranked first with a total score of more than 9,000 points. The Sea Spirit tribe was ranked second with a total score of almost 7,000 points. The Evil Goat tribe was ranked seventh with a total score of 1,500 points. Compared to the score of the Evil Goat tribe in previous years, it was much lesser. The reason for this was because of the sudden withdrawal of their young clan leader, Xin Yu-chun. If I want to get the first place in the southern border, just the fire summoning talisman in my hand is definitely not enough. In that case, I will first rob the fire souls of the other tribes to increase my score. Ning Fan did not rush to use the fire summoning talisman of the headquarters. Instead, he rushed towards the combat testing areas of the southern border. The poor True Khan tribe. 20 participants were besieging 5 True Crossing Realm fire souls. Before they could react, a pitch-black flame flashed past them. Almost in an instant, the 5 True Crossing Realm fire souls were burnt to ashes. The Tower Wood tribe got 61 points. At the same time, Ning Fan obtained another 5 fire crystals. Why? We didn't rob the Tower Wood tribe's fire souls. Why do you want to rob us? One of the shamans of the True Khan tribe shouted angrily. So what? What can you do about it? Ning Fan glared at the shaman mercilessly. That shaman was so frightened that he did not dare to speak anymore. Cold sweat was dripping down his forehead. Even though he knew that killing was not allowed in this combat test, after the True Khan tribe, Ning Fan robbed the fire souls of the other tribes that they were hunting one after another. The first tribes that were robbed were just those small tribes that did not have Shikong tribe's protection. Then, Ning Fan also visited those tribes that had Shikong tribe's protection. The Corpse Shi tribe had 3 early Shikong tribes' protection. They were working together to hunt 3 Shikong tribes' fire souls. Suddenly, they saw a ray of flame coming towards them. The 3 Shikong tribes' members were enraged. What a bold external cultivator. You want to rob the fire souls of our Corpse Shi tribe? It won't be that easy. The 3 Shikong tribes' members soared into the sky at the same time and attacked Ning Fan. As for the 3 Shikong tribes' fire souls, they were temporarily sealed by the cultivators of the Corpse Shi tribe. According to the rules of the combat test, Ning Fan was not allowed to take the initiative to hurt the other tribe's fire souls. However, if the other party retaliates first, he can also retaliate. Get lost. Ning Fan opened his mouth and spat out a sea of flames, engulfing the 3 Shikong tribes members who had soared into the sky. Then, 3 miserable shrieks were heard. After that, 3 primordial spirits that were terrified escaped from the devil flames. Their physical bodies had already been burnt to ashes. This was also because Ning Fan had shown them mercy. Otherwise, it would not be difficult for him to kill 3 of them instantly. Senior, please spare our lives. The 3 Shikong tribes members were so frightened that they immediately begged for mercy. They were afraid that Ning Fan would be so audacious as to ignore the rules of this place and kill them. Ning Fan did not even look at the 3 Shikong tribes members. He raised his hand and killed the 3 Shikong tribes' fire souls that they had summoned. Then, he went to the next combat test area. The combat test area of the Black Mountain tribe. The 2 mid-Shikong tribes members of the Black Mountain tribe licked their lips. They had already made up their minds to severely injure Ning Fan. Both of them suddenly soared into the sky and cast an inescapable net at Ning Fan. However, they were all burned to ashes by Ning Fan's devil flames even though their physical bodies were also destroyed by him. At the same time, the 2 Shikong tribes' fire souls that were summoned by the Black Mountain tribe were also destroyed. The combat test area of the White Ghost tribe. The White Ghost tribe had a total of 7 Shikong tribes members. The strongest one among them was the late Shikong tribe sorcerer. The moment Ning Fan stepped into the combat test area of the White Ghost tribe, the sorcerer immediately struck out a lightning palm towards the grassland. A grand formation that had been prepared for a long time immediately began to operate. My White Ghost tribe is proficient in the Tao of formations. Even an early thought fragmentation realm cultivator who enters this yin and yang life and death formation will be severely injured. Today, I will use my blood essence to activate the formation. I will definitely injure you severely in this formation. The sorcerer's face was filled with arrogance. He did not think that Ning Fan, who was trapped in this formation, could do anything. He spat out 7 mouthfuls of blood essence at the formation. The consumption of his blood essence was definitely not small. The other 6 Shikong tribe's members also did the same. Instantly, the power of the grand formation increased by more than 1-fold. This is just a mere formation. It's not enough to trap me. Ning Fan could even easily break Emperor Luo Tuo's formation in the mountain. Why would he be afraid of the formation set up by a group of Shikong tribe's members? He did not even use the force character. Instead, he directly dashed forward with his physical body and forcefully destroyed the grand formation. All of the 7 Shikong tribe's members, including the sorcerers, coughed out blood and retreated frantically. Their faces were filled with shock. This man's physical body is really terrifying. Even if his cultivation base is sealed, he can still defeat an early thought fragmentation realm cultivator with just his physical body. How would they still dare to stop Ning Fan? They could only watch Ning Fan destroy the fire soul that was summoned by the headquarters. The Wind's summoning division was now under great pressure. The moment Ning Fan stepped into the Wind's summoning division, Nan Zhilong's eyes turned ruthless. He said coldly to the 9 Shikong tribe's members behind him. Hurry up and help me fuse my soul. The medicine soul power of the 9 Shikong tribe's members instantly went into Nan Zhilong's body. Nan Zhilong, who was already at the peak Shikong tribe's cultivation base, immediately skyrocketed. He directly broke through the bottleneck of the thought fragmentation realm and reached the early thought fragmentation realm. You have the physical body of the thought fragmentation realm, but I also have the combat power of the thought fragmentation realm. How can I let a mere external cultivator like you take away the fire's soul of my Wind summoning division? Heavenly Devil Breaking Finger. Nan Zhilong suddenly raised the index finger of his right hand and chanted an incantation. Immediately, 12 gigantic golden Buddha statues appeared behind him. His index finger was gradually dyed with a layer of golden light. That golden light was very faint, but it was constantly emitting a terrifying Buddha's might. That Buddha's might seemed to be able to suppress the ancient devil bloodline in Ning Fan's body. Ning Fan instantly realized that this was a Buddha clan's devil-breaking divine ability. Nan Zhilong shouted loudly and pressed his finger with all his might. A faint golden 1000 zhang finger imprint seemed to have directly pressed against the vast sky within 10,000 li or directly into Ning Fan's eyes. Relying on the strength of his physical body, Ning Fan directly threw a punch and shattered the 1000 zhang finger imprint. However, a few breaths later, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. What a strange divine ability. He had clearly blocked the 1000 zhang finger imprint, but he was still injured. From the looks of it, the finger imprint that fell into his eyes also had destructive power. What it damaged was the Tao heart of a devil cultivator. What a strange divine ability of the Buddha clan. It can actually directly attack one's Tao heart. It was Ning Fan's first time seeing such a divine ability of the Buddha clan. Of course, he suffered a small loss. However, now that he was prepared, it would be very difficult for this type of divine ability to work on him again. As the raging flames around his body burned, even the minor injury was healed in the process of nirvana. Seeing that Ning Fan was only slightly injured and his injuries healed in an instant, Nan Zhilong was slightly surprised. One should know that this was a divine ability that he had learned from the heavenly capital peak of the middle state after paying a huge price. It was also his strongest technique. In the past, when he used it, it was almost always successful. Even a mid-thought fragmentation realm cultivator would most likely be severely injured by it. Of course, there was a prerequisite for this technique. The opponent must be a cultivator of the Devil Tao. Only then could the devil-breaking finger unleash its full power. Ning Fan was undoubtedly a cultivator of the Devil Tao. It was obvious from his chi. However, he still managed to withstand the heavenly capital devil-breaking finger head-on. If you don't have any other trump cards, don't blame me for being merciless. Ning Fan's speed was unimaginably fast. Relying on the strength of his physical body, he directly collided with Nan Zhilong and sent him flying away while coughing out blood. He did not even have the time to dodge the attack. The soul fusion technique required an extremely precise spirit sense to maintain. As Nan Zhilong was injured, he almost fainted. Naturally, he could not maintain the technique and his chi quickly weakened. The other members of the Wind Summoning Clan wanted to stop Ning Fan again. However, they were all sent flying away by Ning Fan one after another. In the end, all the fire souls that the Wind Summoning Clan summoned were also killed by Ning Fan. Damn it! Damn it! Nan Zhilong was extremely unwilling to accept this outcome. However, he was helpless at the same time. The martial test was originally a place to test one's strength. In the past, the Wind Summoning Clan had always been the ones who snatched the fire souls of other clans. Today, due to the cycle of karma, it was the Wind Summoning Clan's turn to be unlucky. However, in this case, they would no longer be able to suppress the score of the Towerwood clan. In that case, they would not be able to please Great Emperor Lu Tuo. The reason why Ning Fan did not go to the Evil Goat clan was naturally because of Xian Yuchun. It made the cultivators of the Evil Goat clan feel that it would be beneficial for their young clan leader to befriend senior Ning Fan for the first time. As for the Sea Soul clan, it was the last clan that Ning Fan went to snatch. There were many members of the Sea Soul clan. However, when Ning Fan arrived, Ming Hai Wu stopped the others from attacking him and stood in front of Ning Fan alone. If you can defeat me, I will hand over all the fire souls of my clan to you to kill. If you can't do it, please leave my Sea Soul clan. This person actually wanted to stop Ning Fan with his own strength. The Sea Soul clan was one of the few clans that did not oppress the Towerwood clan. Therefore, Ning Fan was not as ruthless to them as he was to the other clans. He nodded and agreed to Ming Hai Wu's challenge. Ming Hai Wu's expression became unprecedentedly solemn. After some hesitation, he finally used his strongest ability that had yet to be perfected to fight Ning Fan. It was a type of Dao Sense technique. It was an ability that only thought-breaking realm cultivators could perfect. If this technique is perfected, it would be the day when Ming Hai Wu officially steps into the thought-breaking realm. Extreme Fire Sense. As soon as Ming Hai Wu's Dao Sense technique was activated, the area where the two of them fought was filled with raging winds and scorching waves. This person could move the wind and clouds with just a single thought. Dao Sense technique, Ning Fan did not directly defeat Ming Hai Wu with his strong physical body. Instead, he slowly raised his finger and pointed at the ground. His mind was recalling the massacre and loneliness on the path of cultivation. It was like the fallen leaves of the west wind falling into his heart. However, he had no regrets. Last night, the west wind had withered the green trees. Ming Hai Wu was instantly shocked. At the moment when Ning Fan raised his finger, the violent wind that he summoned with his Dao Sense was instantly taken over by Ning Fan. Then, it turned into a gentle west wind and leaves fell from the sky. Those leaves were silent, but they gave Ming Hai an unprecedented sense of crisis. He almost activated his Dao Sense and crazily charged towards those leaves. He wanted to use his extreme fire sense to burn the falling leaves that filled the sky. Fallen leaves belonged to the wood element. Wood gave birth to fire. Between the two elements, Ming Hai Wu thought that his Dao Sense should be able to suppress Ning Fan's Dao Sense. However, the result was that Ming Hai Wu's extreme fire sense was easily defeated by Ning Fan's Dao Sense. Under the Dao Sense of the west wind, it slowly turned into ashes. In terms of the 5 elements, the extreme fire sense should not be defeated by Ning Fan's Dao Sense. In terms of the degree of perfection of Dao Sense, Ming Hai Wu had a strange feeling. He always felt that Ning Fan's Dao Sense was not perfect. It was even not as perfect as many early thought fragmentation realm cultivators. Could it be that Ning Fan's cultivation base was lower than the thought fragmentation realm? That was why his Dao Sense was not perfect? As soon as this thought emerged, Ming Hai Wu rejected it. Ning Fan had already been proven to be an immortal venerable in the ancient times. Naturally, it was impossible for his cultivation base to be lower than the thought fragmentation realm. In that case, Ming Hai Wu could only assume that Ning Fan had purposely suppressed the strength of his Dao sense to have a fair fight with him. He, Ming Hai Wu, was convinced that he had lost to such a magnanimous old monster. Senior, please enlighten me on why my extreme fire sense would lose to your Dao sense of the west wind. Ming Hai Wu asked humbly. Ning Fan was not a thought fragmentation realm old monster. His understanding of Dao sense was not even as good as Ming Hai Wu, who was at the half-step thought fragmentation realm. However, he was a second heaven realm cultivator. He could see many questions that Ming Hai Wu did not understand. Thus, it was not difficult for him to answer this question. Different depths. As soon as Ning Fan finished speaking, he killed the fire souls summoned by the Sea Soul Division. Ming Hai Wu heaved a long sigh. It was as if he had obtained great benefits from Ning Fan's short explanation. He gave an order to his subordinates. Immediately, the Sea Soul Division summoned some other Du Zhen and Renkong fire souls for Ning Fan to kill and obtain points. Should I kill the thought fragmentation fire soul? Ming Hai Wu suddenly asked. Ning Fan did not answer immediately. From the bottom of his heart, he did not want to kill the thought fragmentation fire soul. After all, the risk of summoning the thought fragmentation fire soul was too great. If he summons a half-step thought fragmentation fire soul that was at the half-step eternal ancient realm, it would certainly be a tough battle. Of course, if Ning Fan was willing to use some of his hidden trump cards in front of the cultivators of the southern border, he could still kill the thought fragmentation fire soul. However, the gains would not make up for the losses. Some things would certainly be exposed to them. Ning Fan calculated the points. As he continued to snatch the fire souls, the total points of the Tower Wood Division had risen to 3,000 points. 3,000 points was enough to make any cultivator of the Tower Wood Division ecstatic. It had exceeded their expectations. It was also enough to make anyone who looked down on the Tower Wood Division and Ning Fan shut their mouths. Those cultivators who claimed that the Tower Wood Division would not surpass 1,000 points all shut their mouths at this moment. Those tribes who claimed to be ahead of the Tower Wood Division by how much points they had received a huge blow. However, Ning Fan was not satisfied with just 3,000 points. The Wind Summoning Division, which was ranked first, had already obtained 9,000 points. If he wanted to become the first in the southern border, he must obtain a score that surpassed the Wind Summoning Division. However, the troublesome thing was that those tribes whose fire souls were snatched by Ning Fan suddenly stopped all of their actions in a tacit manner. They no longer summoned the fire souls to hunt them. Some of them were too weak to hunt the fire souls because their members were severely injured. Some of them had other intentions and were unwilling to continue summoning the fire souls in case Ning Fan snatched the fire souls from them. In other words, the Sea Spirit Division was more honest and trustworthy. They took the initiative to summon the fire souls for Ning Fan to snatch. According to the rules, if the other party does not take the initiative to summon the fire souls, Ning Fan was not allowed to directly snatch their fire summoning talismans. If I want to surpass the Wind Summoning Division's score, it won't be enough even if I use up all the remaining low-grade and mid-grade fire summoning talismans of the Tower Wood Division. If that's the case, I'll have to hunt the Broken Thought fire soul sooner or later. Thinking of this, Ning Fan answered Ming Hai Wu. Summon one of the Broken Thought fire souls of your division. After I kill one, I'll summon the second one, alright. It's also a great fortune for me to be able to witness Senior's battle against a real Broken Thought fire soul. Ming Hai Wu seemed to not care about the results of the combat test at all. At this moment, he only wanted to see Ning Fan hunt the Broken Thought fire soul. Immediately, he ordered the cultivators of his division to use the high-grade fire summoning talisman. However, a problem suddenly appeared. After using the high-grade fire summoning talisman, there was no effect at all. No Broken Thought fire soul appeared. Strange. Could it be that there's a problem with this high-grade fire summoning talisman? Otherwise, why couldn't I summon the Broken Thought fire soul? Ming Hai Wu was greatly surprised. He then tried to use the other high-grade fire summoning talismans and found out that all of them had problems. In the entire minor competition of the southern border, no one was foolish enough to summon the Broken Thought Fire Soul. Thus, no one had tried to summon the Broken Thought Fire Soul before. It was also because of this that no one noticed the problem with the talisman before Ning Fan decided to summon the Broken Thought Fire Soul. Ning Fan tried to use the high-grade fire summoning talisman of the Tower Wood Division and found out that there was no effect at all. However, the low-grade and mid-grade fire summoning talismans were still usable. Helplessly, Ning Fan could only give up on hunting the Broken Thought Fire Soul. Since the other tribes did not continue to summon the Dujin Void Fire Soul, he had no choice but to use all the fire summoning talismans of the Tower Wood Division first. The remaining 38 low-grade fire summoning talismans and 20 mid-grade fire summoning talismans were all used up by Ning Fan. The score of the Tower Wood Division had also exceeded 6,000. 6,000 points was still incomparable to the 9,000 points of the Tower Wood Division. As time passed, the other tribes still did not have the intention to summon the Broken Thought Fire Soul. It was as if they would rather end the combat test with this result than to summon the Broken Thought Fire Soul. It's our fault that we can't make the Tower Wood Division rank last. But no matter what, we must not let the Tower Wood Division seize the first place. Our strength is not as good as that external cultivator with the surname Ning. If we summon the Broken Thought Fire Soul, it will certainly be snatched away by him before we can kill it. In that case, it's better for us not to summon it at all. That way, the Tower Wood Division will have no hope of seizing the first place at all. At least we can consider it as us doing our part for great Emperor Lu Tuo. These were the true thoughts of countless tribes. Even the cultivators who were not lacking in intelligence could see through their thoughts. How could Ning Fan not see through them? This was a passive method to suppress the Tower Wood Division. However, it was extremely effective. After all, if those tribes do not summon the Broken Thought Fire Soul on their own, Ning Fan would not be able to snatch it even if he wanted to. He would not be able to increase his score any further. If it really doesn't work, I'll just use an illusion technique on the cultivators of those tribes and force them to summon the Broken Thought Fire Soul on their own. Just as Ning Fan was muttering to himself, the grassland suddenly trembled irregularly. Sometimes it was light and sometimes it was heavy. The tremors were extremely irregular. As the tremors occurred, strange changes suddenly occurred in each of the combat testing areas. In the combat testing area of the True Khan Division, a ball of dark brown flames suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Then, a dark brown Broken Thought Fire Soul walked out of the flames. It emanated a mid-thought fragmentation realm cultivation base. Immediately after that, the second, third, fourth and fifth Broken Thought Fire Soul appeared in the True Khan Division one after another. Their cultivation bases ranged from the early thought fragmentation realm to the late thought fragmentation realm. As soon as the Broken Thought Fire Soul appeared, it instantly triggered a frenzied massacre in the True Khan Division. Almost all of the 20 participating cultivators of the True Khan Division died on the spot. One should know that the True Khan Division did not even use their high-grade fire summoning talisman. The timing of the appearance of the 5 Broken Thought Fire Souls was just too strange. Not only the True Khan Division, but also the other tribes' combat testing areas also had 5 Broken Thought Fire Souls. The number of Broken Thought Fire Souls was exactly the same as the number of high-grade fire summoning talismans they had. How could a group of Du Zhen and Shikong fight against the Broken Thought Fire Souls? Moreover, each tribe's combat testing area had 5 Broken Thought Fire Souls at the same time. Therefore, the casualties were extremely heavy. Many of the participating cultivators of the tribes were slaughtered on the spot. Only a few cultivators survived. Even so, it was still extremely shocking. The most terrifying thing was that after the Broken Thought Fire Souls killed all the participants in front of them, they started to attack the crowd. Judging from their momentum, if they killed all the cultivators here, they would flee to the entire southern border and slaughter the entire southern border. With the cultivation base of the cultivators in the southern border grassland, it was impossible for them to stop this massacre. After all, there were 175 Broken Thought Fire Souls. Even if the immortal venerables were here, facing so many broken thought fire souls would make their scalp numb and they would have to be careful. Suddenly, a sneer with the aura of broken thought fire souls entered the ears of every cultivator here. It seemed to have come from the underground of the grassland. Jie jie jie, Chu Lai, Duolon, the ominous realm didn't kill you because of Sky Flame's incompetence. However, Shi Yan, am not an incompetent person. This time, you won't be able to escape from our hands. The Triflame guards who ambushed Duolon had actually chased him all the way here. How did they get out of the ominous realm and step into Debay? Chapter 10:10. That sneer seemed to have come from the deepest part of the ground. Then, it was drowned out by the chaotic noises of the grassland. Countless cultivators of the southern border were furious. Without a doubt, the Triflame guards had invaded the grassland again. The invaders must have tampered with the fire summoning talisman in advance, causing countless flame souls of broken thoughts to go berserk. This was not unprecedented. Thousands of years ago, the celestial water grassland also experienced a fire soul riot. The last time it happened was 70,000 years ago. Even further back in history, there were many similar occurrences. For the Debay tribe, every fire soul riot meant a catastrophe. The cultivators in the area were fleeing in all directions while spreading their spirit sense into the ground. Unfortunately, most of them had limited spirit sense. After reaching a certain depth, they would be blocked by the thick earth chi. It was difficult for them to go deeper. There were also some experts who relied on their powerful spirit sense to force their way into the ground. However, when they saw what was underground, they were all attacked. Their sea of consciousness was severely damaged and they coughed out blood in embarrassment. It's really the stone flame invasion. Moreover, the intruder actually brought a stone dragon with him. It's highly possible that a stone flame devil son has come to this place. In that case, the volcano divine ability that suppressed the external cultivator with the surname Ning was really the work of the stone flame scoundrel. However, we have also checked the ground just now. We didn't find anyone hiding here. Don't send your spirit sense into the ground. The stone dragons of the stone flame lineage eat spirit sense. Even immortal venerables have to be careful when dealing with them. Ordinary Triflame guards won't be able to leave the territory of the ominous domain. The intruder is definitely not an ordinary person. We must report this to the Holy Mountain as soon as possible. However, even if they report this matter to the Holy Mountain, they would still have to wait for a long time before the experts of the Holy Mountain would arrive. During this period of time, there would definitely be countless casualties in the grassland. The exclamations of a few people were quickly suppressed by the blood-curdling screams from all directions. As the flame souls of broken thoughts spread out and began their massacre, more and more people died in the hands of the flame souls of broken thoughts. The entire grassland was filled with flames and corpses. Ning Fan's brows were tightly knitted together. This sudden change had also surprised him. Relying on his powerful spirit sense, Ning Fan peeked into the depths of the ground. It was completely dark in the depths of the ground. He could not see anything clearly. Besides, there was also a bone-corroding coldness that was like the netherworld corroding one's spirit sense, making it impossible for cultivators to maintain their spirit sense underground for a long period of time. With Ning Fan's perception, he could vaguely sense that there was an incomparably gigantic and mysterious creature entrenched in the depths of that place. Its body could stretch for hundreds of li. Besides, there seemed to be a force around its body that seemed to be able to fuse with the land of this place, giving off an unusually heavy and oppressive feeling. The only unfortunate thing was that it was too dark underground, causing Ning Fan to be unable to see the appearance of this gigantic creature clearly. That gigantic creature's perception towards spirit sense was especially sharp. Even though Ning Fan's rain technique was concealed, it was still alerted. Even though it could not pinpoint the exact location of Ning Fan's spirit sense, the gigantic creature still instinctively used its abilities to attack its surroundings indiscriminately. All of a sudden, Ning Fan felt a scorching qi rushing towards his spirit sense. Then, he felt an excruciating pain as if his sea of consciousness was being burned. All of a sudden, the trace of spirit sense that he had sent into the ground was destroyed by the gigantic creature using an unknown method. The process was too fast that Ning Fan did not even have the time to withdraw his spirit sense. Fortunately, Ning Fan was very careful in his actions. The amount of spirit sense that he sent into the ground was very little. Thus, he suffered almost no damage. Compared to those cultivators of the southern border who were severely injured and coughed out blood, he was considered to be extremely lucky. Ning Fan's expression was extremely solemn. The gigantic creature that was hiding underground was no trivial matter. It actually gave him a trace of pressure. It was far stronger than the flame souls of broken thoughts that were wreaking havoc everywhere on the grassland. It was probably at least as strong as an ancient immortal venerable or even stronger. That gigantic creature was obviously extremely strong. But why did it hide underground instead of above the grassland? Was it because it couldn't show itself? Was it unwilling to show itself? Or was there something else? From the exclamations of some of the cultivators of the southern border, they seemed to have mentioned something like 100-li stone dragon. Could it be that they were referring to the gigantic creature that was entrenched underground? There seemed to be a lot of cultivators hiding inside the gigantic creature. There were no less than 100 of them. Could these hidden cultivators be the stone flame cultivators of the 3 flame guards? Oh? Is it an external immortal venerable? According to the report of some void flame guards, they had seen an external immortal venerable in the ominous domain when they were searching for Duo Lan. Could it be this person? I wonder if the failure of the void flame guards is related to this person. However, this person's cultivation base is limited. If I don't destroy the punishment ring, it won't be worth mentioning at all. Even if I destroy the punishment ring and restore my full cultivation base, there's nothing to worry about. After all, I've brought 100-li stone dragon with me this time. If an ancient immortal venerable comes, I'll kill him without hesitation. In the depths of the ground, there was a cultivator with a sturdy figure standing in the mouth of the gigantic creature. He spoke with slight disdain. His facial features were well defined, giving people a sense of determination. However, the only thing that didn't match his determined appearance was his messy white hair that resembled withered grass and his unhealthily pale complexion. Ning Fan, on the other hand, could not hear what this person said as his spirit sense had been destroyed. Behind this person, there were hundreds of human figures that were burning with flames. Ning Fan no longer peeked into the ground. After all, that gigantic creature seemed to be very good at attacking spirit sense. It was extremely unwise to probe it rashly as it would only cause unnecessary damage. Besides, compared to the gigantic creature that was hiding underground, the fire souls of broken sense that were wreaking havoc on the grassland also needed to be dealt with. "Senior, save me!" Duo Lan screamed. She ignored the rules of the combat test and directly rushed into the Tamu combat test area, trying to seek Ning Fan's protection. In other words, the rules of the combat test were already useless in such a chaotic situation. Even if she trespassed the combat test area without permission, no one would stop her. Duo Lan hid behind Ning Fan with a pale face. She did not expect that she would be chased all the way to the grassland of the southern border by the 3 flame guards. Moreover, in order to hunt her down, these stone flame guards directly triggered a fire soul insurrection. How extravagant! The reason why these people chased her all the way to this place could no longer be explained with a simple scheme. Could it be that the secret that she had painstakingly kept was known by some powerful old monsters? That's why they would go through so much trouble just to scheme against a princess who had fallen from grace. There were a total of 4 fire souls of broken sense that were chasing after Duo Lan. All of them were only at the early thought fragmentation realm. With Duo Lan's cultivation base and her body that had yet to fully recover, she was naturally far from being able to resist them. The 4 fire souls did not have high intelligence, but they had the instincts of wild beasts. They could vaguely sense the dangerous qi on Ning Fan's body. For a moment, they did not dare to get too close to him. One of the fire souls of broken sense suddenly took a step forward and said to Ning Fan in an unfamiliar language. "Hand over this woman. We will spare your life. Otherwise..." We will kill you. Duolan gripped Ning Fan's sleeves tightly. She was afraid that Ning Fan would be afraid of the danger in front of him and abandon her. After all, there was a precedent of Ning Fan not saving her when she was in danger. In fact, Ning Fan was really not concerned about Duolan's life or death. However, he did not mind saving Duolan along the way. It was not out of kindness. He just wanted to take advantage of the chaos to kill more fire souls of broken sense. Naturally, he would not care about the threat of the few fire souls. Since that giant creature is not going to show itself, I don't need to care about it for now. Now that the combat examination has yet to end, a large number of fragmented will fire souls have appeared in the midst of chaos. If I am not wrong, these fire souls that have suddenly appeared are the ones that the high-grade fire summoning talisman could not summon. I wonder if killing these fire souls will be counted into the score of the combat test. If that's true, I can take advantage of this chaos to get the first place in the combat test. The southern border was in chaos. Everyone else was thinking about how to escape with their lives, but Ning Fan was still thinking about winning the first place in the minor competition. Seeing that the 4 fire souls of broken sense did not dare to come closer to him, Ning Fan left Duolan behind and took the initiative to dash forward. He directly went towards the 4 fire souls of broken sense that were chasing after Duolan. When the 4 fire souls of broken sense saw that Ning Fan actually dared to approach them, all of them were enraged. Immediately, they displayed their abilities and attacked Ning Fan with fire elemental abilities. Ning Fan, of course, was not afraid of them. At the moment when they crossed paths, he had already used his devil flame to exchange a blow with each of the 4 fire souls of broken sense. However, the result was that he and the 4 fire souls were evenly matched. They could not determine the winner in terms of flames. What a high fire resistance, Ning Fan exclaimed softly. The fire resistance of the 4 fire souls was too high. In that case, even if his devil flame was powerful and had reached the level of the 12 darkness true fire, it would not be a good idea to fight fire with fire. The damage it could cause was negligible. With the strength of Senior's devil flame, it actually can't do anything to these fire souls of broken sense. No, these fire souls have been enhanced by the soul fusion technique. That's why their fire resistance is so strong. Duolan suddenly realized something and exclaimed. As soon as she uttered those words, Ning Fan noticed that the 4 flame souls of broken thoughts had an extremely obscure medicine soul power that could greatly increase their fire resistance. He immediately understood what was going on. So that's how it is. Someone has used the soul fusion technique to greatly increase the fire resistance of these earth fire souls. According to Ning Fan's understanding, the people of Dabii were born with medicine souls. Their understanding and utilization of medicine souls were not something that a 4 heavens pill refinement master could compare with. Not only were there many medicine soul skills that were hard to find in the outside world, but there was also an extremely special secret technique in Dabii called the soul fusion technique. It was an original creation of the cultivators of Dabii. One could use the power of one's own medicine soul to enhance the soul power of others through a specific method. The cultivators who were enhanced by the soul power would have all kinds of additional effects on their bodies. Some of them were enhancements such as the increase of their cultivation base, resistance to the 5 elements and speed. Some of them were damage reduction such as sluggishness, poison, accelerated consumption of magic power, dizziness. The specific effects were closely related to the characteristics of the cultivator's medicine soul. Ning Fan had fought against the 3 flame guards before. The soul fusion technique that the 3 flame guards used belonged to the enhancement type. Its effect was to combine everyone's soul power and temporarily increase the cultivation base of a single cultivator. The soul fusion technique that the young clan leader of the evil goat tribe, Xian Yuchen, was good at was a little heaven-defying. It was said that he could inflict tens of negative effects on a group of enemy cultivators. It belonged to the damage reduction type technique. Besides, it was one of a kind among the damage reduction type soul fusion techniques. That was why it was feared by the cultivators of the southern border. As for the fire resistance of these fire souls of broken sense, there was no doubt that someone had enhanced them with the enhancement type soul fusion technique. In that case, even if Ning Fan's devil flame was strong, it would be difficult for him to defeat these fire souls of broken sense with his devil flame alone. That's all there is to it. The four fire souls looked at Ning Fan with disdain and killing intent. Seeing that the devil flame was not going to work, Ning Fan did not force it. He immediately kept the devil flame and with a flip of his hand, took out a tender pine seedling that was about a foot tall. He held it up to the sky. Immediately, the pine seedling grew in the sky and turned into a gigantic pine. The pine needles on it were all flying swords. There were countless of them. They were the four emperors' Arhat pines. Among the many magic treasures that he had, this pine tree was not the strongest. However, it was enough to deal with the current situation. Wood element magic treasure. The four fire souls did not put the four emperors' Arhat pines in their eyes at all. Wood gives birth to fire. Since they had the upper hand in this aspect, why would they be afraid of this magic treasure? However, the sudden change in the situation made the eyes of the four fire souls filled with human-like fear. Ning Fan made a hand seal and 30 million sword rays immediately flew out from the gigantic pine tree. The vast number of flying swords was like a vast ocean, almost covering the entire sky. Many cultivators of the southern border who saw this scene with their own eyes sucked in a cold breath. Flying swords blotting the sky. Just how many flying swords does that external cultivator with the surname Ning have? He actually covered the entire sky with his flying swords. It's not just the number. Almost 1 out of 10 flying swords can be classified as an immortal sword. There are actually so many acquired immortal swords among them. Duolan was the closest to Ning Fan. Thus, he could see it more clearly. Among the sea of swords that covered the sky, there were 9 rays of sword light that were the sharpest. They were 9-12 Nirvana immortal swords. Senior Ning is really generous. Duolan was so surprised that he could not close his mouth. Even among the immortal venerables and immortal kings of the sacred mountain, there were not many who had so many 12 Nirvana magic treasures. Could it be that all the immortal venerables of the external cultivators have so many treasures? For a battle between immortal venerables, a single 12 Nirvana magic treasure was enough to affect the outcome of the battle. For a battle between thought fragmentation realm experts, it was almost impossible for those who possessed 12 Nirvana magic treasures to lose. In terms of cultivation base, the 4 early thought fragmentation realm fire souls were not even as strong as Ning Fan's single ancient devil. In terms of magic treasures, they were even more incomparable. There was no doubt about the outcome of this battle. As Ning Fan made a hand seal, countless rays of sword light fell from the sky, killing the 4 fire souls in the sea of swords. The entire process did not take more than 10 breaths. Ning Fan looked at his Dominion card. After killing the 4 thought fragmentation fire souls, his score in the combat test had indeed increased by 4,000 points. At the same time, he also obtained 4 thought fragmentation fire crystals. Unfortunately, it was still not enough. In order to become the first in the southern border, he needed more points. Follow me closely. Ning Fan's face was expressionless as if killing the 4 thought fragmentation fire souls was just a trivial matter. With a flash, he flew towards the members of the Towerwood clan. Moving together with him was the ocean of 30 million swords that blotted out the sky. At such a chaotic moment, how would Duolan dare to leave Ning Fan's side? Naturally, she would follow him wherever he went. At this moment, the rampaging thought fragmentation fire souls had already spread across the southern border. Wherever they went, the grassland was covered in a sea of flames. More killings were taking place continuously. The cultivators of the Towerwood clan were also targeted by a thought fragmentation fire soul. Their clansmen scattered in all directions, but there were still 6 to 7 of them who died in the hands of the fire soul. The clan leader, Tagori, watched as his clansmen died one after another. His heart was filled with sorrow as if it was dripping blood. The members of the Towerwood clan here were all participants of the minor competition. They were the elites of the clan. The death of any one of them was an irreparable loss for the Towerwood clan. To the Towerwood clan, which did not have a large number of experts in the first place, it was an even greater blow. Tagore hated himself for not having enough cultivation base. He hated himself for not being able to kill these fire souls. He hated himself for not being able to protect his clansmen. He hated himself for not being able to tear the mastermind behind the riot of the fire souls into 1,000 pieces. However, the sad thing was that even he himself was targeted by the thought fragmentation fire soul. I will die. When the thought fragmentation fire soul pounced on him, that was the only thought left in Tagore's mind. His face was filled with despair and unwillingness. He let out a loud roar and his eyes turned blood red. Just as he was about to detonate his primordial spirit to fight against the thought fragmentation fire soul, a gentle force suddenly stopped his primordial spirit from burning. Then, sword light that blotted out the sky and covered the earth fell from the sky, easily slashing the thought fragmentation fire soul that was brimming with killing intent just a moment ago into minced meat. Tagore suddenly raised his head. He was not the only one. All of the Tamu people who were fleeing stopped in their tracks and raised their heads. They saw the figure who was standing in the sky and killing the thought fragmentation fire soul like slaughtering dogs. Thank you for saving us, Senior. The sorrowful expression on Tagore and the others' faces gradually faded. It was replaced by gratitude, fanaticism and crazy worship towards Ning Fan. This was a person who could turn the tide in a desperate situation. If it wasn't for him, none of the participants of the Tamu clan would have survived. This person was the benefactor of the Tamu clan. It's 10,000 points. Ning Fan merely nodded his head indifferently in response to everyone's gratitude. He glanced at the dominoes and said to Tagore and the others calmly, "Follow me closely." As soon as he finished speaking, he flew towards another direction. Tagore and the others did not dare to be negligent. They immediately followed Duo Lan and hid behind Ning Fan. Following Ning Fan, they ran all over the grassland. Due to the crazy killing efficiency of the thought fragmentation fire soul, there were not many living beings left on the grassland. Ning Fan was the only one who was still running around recklessly, treating the surrounding fire souls as if they were nothing. 11,000, 12,000, 13,000. Ning Fan's points kept rising as he killed the thought fragmentation fire soul. This score was already enough for him to take the first place in the combat test. However, he still continued to kill the thought fragmentation fire soul along the way and flew towards the evil goat tribe. At this moment, all the surviving cultivators who had some strength had gathered together. The surviving cultivators of the evil goat tribe were also among them. The sacred envoy corpse devil who was in charge of the minor competition of the southern border was also here. He had become the leader of the group. He gathered most of the surviving experts together to fight against the thought fragmentation fire soul. He did not plan to kill them all. He just wanted to stall for time and reduce the number of casualties until the reinforcements from the sacred mountain arrived. As for whether the thought fragmentation fire soul would scatter across the entire grassland of the southern border, it was not something that the sacred envoy corpse devil could stop. With his cultivation base at the early thought fragmentation realm, the role that he could play in this chaotic situation was very limited. Fortunately, the minor competition was held in the Wind's Summoning Division. At the critical moment, the Wind's Summoning Division directly summoned the guardian corpse devil of their tribe. Surprisingly, it was also an early thought fragmentation realm corpse devil. As a result, the cultivators of the southern border had 2 thought fragmentation realm experts guarding them. Unfortunately, both of them were only at the early thought fragmentation realm. Such strength was enough for the surviving cultivators to stay alive for a short period of time. However, as time passed, trouble would come. Sensing that the experts in this place had gathered together, more and more thought fragmentation fire souls began to surround them. 5, 6, 7, 11. At this moment, 11 thought fragmentation fire souls including 4 mid-thought fragmentation fire souls were attacking the group of people led by the sacred envoy corpse devil. The Wind Summoning Division, the Evil Goat Tribe and the other tribes tried their best, but they could only cooperate with the Sacred Envoy Corpse Devil to form a grand formation. They were barely able to protect themselves under the attacks of the Fire Souls. However, as the number of Fire Souls continued to increase, the formation that the Sacred Envoy Corpse Devil had set up was constantly being breached. The situation had become precarious. Once the formation was broken, the Fire Souls outside would be able to rush in. No one knew how many survivors would be torn to pieces by the Fire Souls. Inside the Grand Formation, Nanjilong of the Wind Summoning Division's face was ashen. He no longer had the arrogant attitude he had before. If the formation was broken, they would have to face the siege of 11 Thought Fragmentation Fire Souls. Even though he was a void-abandoning expert, he was not confident that he could stay alive. The White Ghost Sorcerer of the White Ghost Tribe closed his eyes in despair. He could no longer suppress Tamu. If he lost his life, what was the point of pleasing Great Emperor Lu Tuo? Once the formation was broken, he would most likely die. Those were 11 Thought Fragmentation Fire Souls. The experts of the Black Mountain Tribe and Yen Nan Tribe were covered in dust. They were panicking like stray dogs. Their usual superior attitude was nowhere to be seen. On the contrary, Xian Yu Chun was unusually calm. He was not afraid of anyone, especially the people of the Stone Flame Tribe. Once the chaos started, Xian Yu Chun was protected by his father and brought to the Corpse Demon Saint Envoy. Although his life was hanging by a thread, he still calmly performed the Soul Fusion secret technique and combined everyone's soul power to attack the 11 Thought Fragmentation Fire Souls outside the Grand Formation. One had to admit that Xian Yu Chun's talent in the Soul Fusion technique was indeed the best in the southern border. He was only at the Life Immortal realm, but after borrowing everyone's soul power, he forcibly added a damage-reducing Soul Fusion technique to the 11 Fire Souls outside the Grand Formation. Cultivation decreased by 5%, speed decreased by 5%, illusion interference once every 10 breaths, dizziness in the sea of consciousness once every 10 breaths. Fire attack weakened by 5%, magic power consumption increased by 5%, he actually added dozens of damage-reducing soul fusion techniques to the Fire Souls. Xian Yu Chun was indeed a genius in the soul fusion technique. Ordinary people would rarely be able to add more than 10 damage-reducing effects. However, he was able to add dozens of damage-reducing effects at the same time. That was why the 11 Thought Fragmentation Fire Souls were greatly weakened. If not for that, the Grand Formation would not have been able to last until now. It could be said that the reason why the cultivators inside the Grand Formation could live for so long was because of Xian Yu Chun. Unfortunately, no matter how talented Xian Yu Chun was, his cultivation was still too weak. It was impossible for him to completely suppress the 11 Thought Fragmentation Fire Souls by himself. Even with the help of many old monsters, he could only slightly weaken the Thought Fragmentation Fire Souls. It was impossible for him to greatly restrict them. Bang! Suddenly, a Thought Fragmentation Fire Soul knocked open a gap in the weak spot of the Grand Formation. One by one, the Thought Fragmentation Fire Souls entered the Grand Formation through the gap. The cultivators inside the Grand Formation were all shocked. In just a single exchange, more than 10 people were killed by the Thought Fragmentation Fire Souls that rushed in. The Corpse Demon Saint Envoy was caught off guard and suffered serious injuries. He brought the Wind Summoning Division's Corpse Demon Guardian and struggled to hold on. However, he could only block a few of the Thought Fragmentation Fire Souls. The rest of the Thought Fragmentation Fire Souls were slaughtering wantonly inside the Grand Formation. In the distance, more Fire Souls were still approaching. More and more Fire Souls surrounded the Corpse Demon Saint Envoy. As time passed, the Wind Summoning Division's Corpse Demon Guardian was killed by a few Fire Souls. The Corpse Demon Saint Envoy finally had the intention to retreat. The Fire Souls are going berserk. We can't stop them anymore. I'm afraid the Saint Mountain's reinforcements won't be able to make it in time. Do we have to give up on these southern border cultivators? The Corpse Demon Saint Envoy's eyes turned ruthless. He suddenly rushed out of the Grand Formation, leaving everyone behind and escaping alone. As soon as he left, there were no more thought fragmentation fire souls. They were even more powerless to resist. Some of the agitated cultivators cursed loudly. They were angry that the corpse demon Saint Envoy ran away. However, after a few breaths, a scream came from afar. It was the voice of the corpse demon Saint Envoy. The corpse demon Saint Envoy was intercepted by a half-step 10,000 ancient realm fire soul on his way. After a few rounds, his head was twisted off. No one can escape. The half-step 10,000 ancient realm fire soul said in a hoarse voice. He turned his hand and a flame shot out, burning the corpse demon Saint Envoy's body into ashes. The crowd was shocked. Even an early thought fragmentation realm corpse demon Saint Envoy couldn't escape. Those with weaker cultivation had no hope of escaping. Father, you go first. I'll cover you. Go now. The fire souls were wreaking havoc everywhere. Xian Yu Chun's eyes were filled with madness. When he saw a thought fragmentation fire soul pouncing towards his father, he immediately stood in front of his father. No one knew what kind of divine ability he used, but his body suddenly turned into stone. He used his body to block the attack of the thought fragmentation fire soul. After the attack, Xian Yu Chun vomited blood and retreated. His face was extremely pale, and his cultivation seemed to have dropped. The Xiaoyang tribe's chief was shocked. He didn't expect his son to block the attack of the thought fragmentation fire soul with his life. He also didn't expect that his silly son would stand in front of him at the moment of life and death. Roar! The fire soul that was blocked by Xian Yu Chun was enraged after its attack failed. It pounced at him again. Xian Yu Chun didn't even have time to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. He stood in front of his father again. The expected pain did not come. A white-robed figure suddenly descended from the sky and stood in front of Xian Yu Chun. With a casual attack, he neutralized the attack of the thought fragmentation fire soul. Then, he pointed his finger and made a sword art. Countless sword lights fell from the sky and easily killed the fire soul. He obtained another piece of fire crystal. Master! Xian Yu Chun's eyes were filled with gratitude. Was he saved by the master he respected the most? Ning Fan ignored Xian Yu Chun's cries. He began to massacre the fire soul on his own, causing fear in the thought fragmentation fire souls. His eyes flashed with a hint of enlightenment. When Xian Yu Chun stood in front of his father, Ning Fan once again felt the arrival of the heart tribulation. It was not just a flash. Instead, it felt like it was really coming. It was the heart tribulation that led to the mid-shedding void realm. My first heart tribulation was born because of a promise. Even though the second heart tribulation is not clear yet, I can still feel some clues. Unfortunately, now is not the time to break through. Ning Fan suppressed the sudden heart tribulation and continued to kill the fire souls. Inside the body of the gigantic creature, the white-haired muscular man frowned and ordered the people behind him. The one hiding behind this man is Chu Lai and Duo Lan. You guys go and search this woman's soul and memory. You must get what we need and then kill her. If this external cultivator tries to stop you, kill him as well. He has quite a number of 12 Nirvana immortal swords. Be careful. Yes. The hundreds of figures behind the white-haired muscular man disappeared one after another. At the same time, on the grassland, the figures of cultivators who were wrapped in flames suddenly appeared around Ning Fan. The cultivation base of these people was not high. Most of them were just at the early truth realm or mid-truth realm. Only a few of them had attained the void-shedding cultivation realm. However, when they formed a formation, their aura force was not any weaker than the weaker 10,000 ancient immortal venerables. It was simply unimaginable. What was even stranger was that as soon as these people appeared, the fire souls who had low spiritual intelligence and killed indiscriminately suddenly rushed towards Ning Fan's location as